All right, well, good evening, everybody. Sorry to be a little late. We had a closed session that went a little bit long. And as always, we try our best to follow COVID protocols according to the County Public Health. And if you'd like to wear a mask, we do have them outside. And of course, we keep the doors open to try to help the circulation for fresh air and ventilation. So before we get going too far, Vice Mayor Christensen, can you please lead the council in a pledge of allegiance? Thank you so much. Well, as many meetings, we get to start today with some celebration and recognition. And today we will be doing a proclamation for the recognition of Chris Miller, the Managing Director of the Performing Arts Center.
Madam Mayor, before we start,
Oh,
may I
yes,
report
sorry,
out the closed session?
So sorry, yes, thank you.
No problem. The council did meet in closed session on one matter of labor negotiations with its agency negotiators and labor groups as specified on the agenda, and there was no reportable action on that matter.
Thank you so much. So I'll go ahead and read the proclamation, then I'll meet you down there to present it to you, Chris. And then we'll have City Manager join us as well. So whereas Chris has a bachelor's degree in drama from the University of Washington in Seattle and a Master of Fine Arts degree in Performing Arts Management from the City University of New York's Brooklyn College. Chris started his professional career as Director of Operations of Seattle's Pacific Northwest Ballet, a post he held for more than 15 years. I'm aging you as we go. He oversaw theater operation at the home of the Seattle Symphony, Benaroya Hall, for 2 years, prior to spending 12 years as the general manager of McCaw Hall, which houses Pacific Northwest Ballet and Seattle Opera. He has knowledge and experience in management, business development, operations, patron service, production, and facilities management for major performing arts public assembly venues, gained during a 31-year career of progressive scope and responsibility. His background includes experience in public and nonprofit sectors, managing complex multi-million-dollar capital and operating expense budgets, and generating substantial earned and contributed revenue. His accomplishments reflect strong strategic planning, relationship building, and communication skills, driven by a passion for creating exceptional environments and experiences for artists, clients, and patrons. During the pandemic, a time that was rife with uncertainty for performing arts venues and certainly for Performing Arts Center employees, Chris did an outstanding job. Through careful and innovative fiscal management, development of new lines of business revenue, temporary transfer of employees to university departments in need of support, success in applying for and obtaining external funding such as the Shuttered Venues grants, the PAC emerged from this difficult time in a strong financial position and was able to retain all of its staff. That's pretty amazing. Chris is a passionate advocate for his team. He consistently praises their efforts, skills, and dedication, and is persistent in ensuring that they are appropriately acknowledged for their efforts. During his tenure at the PAC, Chris has made certain that his staff have the training and professional development that will help them grow professionally in their current roles and beyond. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed on behalf of the City of San Luis Obispo, we hereby express our sincere appreciation and gratitude to Chris Miller for his dedicated service to the community and extend best wishes for his continued success and happiness in retirement and all future endeavors.
Hi, I have few prepared remarks, no prepared remarks, but I just want to say thank you very much for this recognition. I really appreciate it. I stand on the shoulder of giants with my staff, and I'm so proud and honored to have been able to work with them and in partnership with the city and with the Foundation for the Performing Arts Center over the last 6.5 years. It's been a joy, a challenge at times, but it was the perfect capstone to my career, and the support that the city and the foundation provide for the Performing Arts Center is unprecedented and a model that other communities should emulate, and is fundamental to our success and the service that we provide to this community. So thank you very much.
I'm going to hop in here, Madam Mayor, and just sing Chris's praises. Many of you may or may not know that many of the roles that I get to serve and represent the city on has been for the last 2 years as the chair of the Performing Arts Center. And it has been an amazing experience, and I just want to echo Chris's comments. We've got a fantastic team that works at the PAC, and Chris has done an amazing job leading us through some very dynamic periods. We have fantastic partners with the FPAC and at Cal Poly, and I think Chris is understating really where we are, is that we are a model that many should emulate. Chris's accomplishments during his time and tenure here, strategic planning, relationship building, communication skills. We've had to rethink performing arts, not only pre-pandemic, but now post-pandemic. During the time, many of you may recall that the PAC itself transitioned to a testing, to a vaccination, and then in the middle of it all, they were our community partner in helping remember one of our fallen officers. Through some really careful and innovative management, Chris has developed new lines of revenue. He's helped work on staff retention, and most importantly, we were able to secure a shuttered venues grant in which the PAC emerged from the pandemic in a very strong position. So we're very lucky to have had Chris's leadership over the last nearly 5 years. And I am thankful and have a lot of gratitude for his support of the arts in our community, the way he's grown that visibility. So thank you, Chris. You will be greatly missed. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, please. So with that, in my continued role as the Performing Arts Chair, I want to just, and I would note that I'm thankfully passing the gavel on January 1st, and so my term will be shifting over to the FPAC, and I'm really excited about that. We wanted to make sure that our community and this council knows some of the new faces that are coming in to lead the FPAC, and we are thrilled that we've got some talented leadership inside of the FPAC, and so Ryan Gruss, if I could ask you to step forward and say a couple words. Ryan Gruss is the interim managing director of the Performing Arts Center. He's been at the PAC for the 9 years, starting as the box office manager that led to the most recent role as the director of patron services and campus ticketing. We all, and I know I speak for the entire board, we believe that the PAC is in good hands under Ryan's leadership. And with that, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. I just want to say thank you for the opportunity to serve the community and the campus. It's been an amazing time working with Chris for the last 6 years. I have an amazing team that works with me at the PAC, and we couldn't be more excited to get going to take the PAC into the next era of its existence. So thank you so much.
Next, I want to invite Kristen Hoover up, who is the Executive Director for the Foundation for the Performing Arts Center. Kristen previously served on the FPAC board for 7 years. Since she moved into San Luis Obispo, she has been very active in the local community and is a great addition to the FPAC team. And if all of you hopefully had a chance to go to the gala, I couldn't make it this year, but I heard it was quite fun, and I know it was a smashing success.
Yeah, I know some of you were definitely there and had a great time, and your wife had a fabulous time too. So I'm just really thankful to be serving in this role. It's quite a career change and into something that I'm really passionate about. So I feel very fortunate to be able to serve in this way, and that we have two fantastic partners in the city and in the university. I think a partnership like that that's lasted for 30 years is pretty incredible and says a lot about our community and just the people who live here and give back and make it possible for us to have a world-class venue to see performing arts and to allow our local residents to perform on a stage like that. So, thank you.
Thanks, Kristen. And my next introduction is Molly Clark, who's the director of Cal Poly Art. If I could have you step forward. And so Ms. Clark previously held the similar positions as the artistic director at the University of California, San Diego's Art Power Performing Arts Center. And I know she's super excited. We got briefed last week on the 22-23 season and how that's underway. And I'll turn it over to Molly.
Thank you so much for having me here, and I just want to say first how grateful I have been to be able to work with Chris, who's been such a great support in my first year and a real fierce advocate for the performing arts here. I think this community has so much potential when we think about what can transform our residents through the performing arts, and I'm really excited to be bringing a diverse array of artists who represent everyone in our community and really get everyone engaged in what we have to offer at Cal Poly Arts and at the PAC. And it's really an honor to be part of this community, so thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, for the opportunity to do that. And, you know, just a quick show of hands, all the people here in the room that helped make the FPAC kind of hum, if you could just raise your hands so people know who those unsung heroes are. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. And I have to say, in both of my hats at Cal Poly, I have worked with Ryan Gress, and I believe wholeheartedly you'll do a fantastic job. So thank you very much. Okay, so next we have Greg Avakian and Megan Berger, and they'll be presenting our public art summary. So we're just kind of going on the arts roll here.
All right, well, thank you very much. Keeping that theme going. Madam Mayor, I'm Greg Avakian, the Director for Parks and Recreation, and I'm pleased to introduce Recreation Manager Megan Berger, who will be presenting the Public Art Year in Review for the 21-22 year. Part of her role is Community Services, Youth Services, and Public Art in her role as Recreation Manager. Megan.
Thank you, Greg. And good evening, Madam Mayor, council members. My name is Megan Berger, like Greg said. And while I've been with the city since 2006, I've been in this current role for just over a year. And in my role, as he said, I oversee the Youth Services Division, Community Services, Jack House, and Public Art. And it's an honor to be with you tonight to share with you what's transpired in the world of public art over the last 15 months. And while most of the presentation tonight will be focused on those 15 months, I want to give you a brief overview of what the city's public art program is. And in spirit of all of the celebration of arts tonight, October is National Arts and Humanities Month, so it's a great night to be here with you all. Thanks. So in 1990, the city established a public art program. And the program originally was housed within the Community Development Department, moved to administration, and has been with Parks and Recreation since 2010. And it's one of the programs of oversight of the Recreation Manager. Currently, the city has, sorry, let me get rid of that. Currently, the city has 115 pieces of art. Of those, 75 are considered temporary art. And one of those is a rotating sculpture that our colleague Emma from SLOMA will share with you. Thanks. And so when people think of public art, they typically imagine the sculpture or the mural that they see on the street and define that as public art. And while in fact that is absolutely an important element of public art and the crowning glory on the web that makes up public art, it's one element. And so I want to share with you the elements that make up public art that your city's staff and our community partners work on. And those are infrastructure maintenance, community and outreach to our local and visiting communities, community partnerships, community programming and activation of public spaces through the arts, aligning with city beautification program, serving as a liaison to installations through private development, voluntary art, and CIP projects, and finally, of course, the installation of temporary and public art for city-owned pieces. Any one of these elements would be well over a 15-minute presentation. And since we have 15 minutes in total tonight, bear with me as we kind of speed through them. Thank you, Greg. Thank you. And when public art installations are discussed, there's several types of installations that the city have supported over the past year. We've supported the installations of private development, CIP art, and voluntary art installations. The city has supported the installation of temporary art, such as our murals and box art programs, as well as permanent installations, such as our gateway roundabout pieces. Again, an opportunity that our colleague Emma will share with us. Oh, there she is. I was like, she was there a minute ago. And my role in these installations is to provide guidance and direction as outlined in public art policy, along with my city colleagues. And to note, the world of public art within the city of San Luis Obispo has shifted drastically over the last few years. And so questions are coming up and are being risen as to what the policies and directions should be moving forward. And so there's conversation that staff will be having as how to best expedite and mainstream the installation process for public and private art while maintaining our transparency. And while I serve as your recreation manager who oversees the public art program, it's not something I do independently, and I want to make sure to share the recognition of city staff who also work tirelessly on these projects. And those are our public works staff, specifically our CIP project managers. There are IT and GIS staff, their community development staff, our staff and administration, our tourism manager, as well as our advisory bodies. Equally valuable are our community partners outside of the city staff. And within that is our local art community. We have folks in the community who have been part of the public art program since 1990 and continue to provide much needed guidance. We have Arts Council of SLO County. We have our San Luis Obispo Museum of Art partners, as well as agency partners both within and outside of this city. In fact, there's a recent new collaboration with Cal Poly. Again, lovely that they're here tonight. You miss it when you're looking this way. But Cal Poly, who will also be installing a utility box program in the spring, same with the city. So we're able to collaborate on how to work together to support one another's efforts. And as you know, supporting these relationships take time, but the payoff is tremendous. And I look forward to seeing what together these community partnerships will bring forth in the next year as we install. But let's get to what myself and our community partners have done over the last 15 months other than community building. First of all, infrastructure maintenance. So staff have been working with our local and knowledgeable artist community to assess our inventory. We have, of those 115 pieces of art, we have art that needs to be maintained. And we've been able to receive some recommendations for preventative and essential maintenance. One piece, as you all know, was the Flames of Knowledge, and the repairs of the Flames of Knowledge and the refurbishment. That had been on the short list for 7 years, so it was great to see that work getting done. We've also received plans for the upcoming maintenance and refurbishment of Iron Road Pioneers and the Puck project, and hope to have those repaired in the next year. It would be remiss not to mention the impact that graffiti and vandalism has on our public art program. And it is a large use of staff resources and expenditures. And in fact, in the last month, we've had 4 pieces of art that have been vandalized, both permanent art and temporary art, so our murals as well as our sculptures. And when that occurs, city staff work together to see if we can maintain it, and we were able to, or repair it, and we were able to do that with 2 pieces, but 2 pieces required calling in the original artists or their support system to have them repainted. Thank you. In addition, with our infrastructure maintenance is infrastructure management. And as you all know, during the COVID time warp, as we'll call it, city staff were working around the clock to support our downtown businesses and to bring vitality back into the city. And this was done through the installation of several temporary art pieces. And while this was happening, city staff were working so quickly and rapidly to make things happen that our infrastructure management wasn't kept up to date. So we're having the opportunity right now to come in and see and to get our infrastructure back to one database. And, excuse me, so thanks to the hard work of our GIS team, who've educated me on what a database is, which is not an Excel spreadsheet, to be very clear. Our databases within the city have been updated, and this is essential in the fact that it allows city staff at any point to be able to inventory our collection, to know what's been installed, when it was last maintained, the artist, and any pertinent information we need. So that's great as a staff resource. Equally awesome is that this is a tool now for our community, and it's a tool for our communications and outreach. And so our GIS team, who are just rock stars, have been able to develop a storyboard and a story map throughout on the city's website. And so when you access it, whether it be through a computer or your mobile device, you're able to get information as to the art that's listed, what's nearby, and it gives you all the background information that would be relevant. This is one step in a multiple step process, and I'll be talking to you about how this tool is going to be used for more community outreach and programming. Thank you. So just last week, Greg and I were at a Parks and Recreation Commission meeting, and the chair said to us, you know, I've really been hearing that the city of San Luis Obispo is becoming known for its public art program. Yes, that was the same. Yes, that's great. And I know in great part, it's due to our tourism staff partners and our advisory body, the PCC advisory body. And in fact, I was only a couple days into my new role, and when Molly Cano, our tourism manager, came up to me and said, PCC wants to help public art. And over the past year, they really have. They've donated or dedicated so much of their time and resources to supporting the public art program. They've funded and developed an entire public art promotional plan. They've created a public art graphic or mark to be used in our promotions. It's shown right up there. It's the orange bubble, and that was after a lot of input from our community. They funded a professional photographer to come in and capture all of the city's inventory in both photographs and in video. And what's really amazing about that is that's now being used on the storyboard. So it's how these connections come back together, the web that makes public art. And finally, they've really focused an effort to get public art in the news. They're one of the reasons that we're becoming known as a hub of public art. And coming soon, that same advisory body will be working with city staff to develop an audio walking tour, and that will be available to anybody, and it will be in partnership with the Parks and Recreation scavenger hunt style public art program. Okay, so while all of that information I've shared is essential, and to me and my procedural brain, it's exciting, I know that this is really the crowning glory of what is public art, and that's our installations. Over this past several months, city staff have been working on some installations, and one of them is the mural project. And the mural project is a partnership with Visits Locale, with a local business owner, and with city staff. And the city is going to be one of 3 murals within the county that's been chosen to depict the migration of the monarch butterfly. And so we had really hoped tonight to have a thumbnail of what the image will look like, but at the last minute we weren't able to get it in time. City Council will be getting an update in the next month on what that project's to look like, and that project will be coming soon. Secondly, and this is a nod to our colleagues in Public Work, Jennifer Rice has really done most of the legwork on this project, but the CIP-driven North Truro Underpass is underway. The work has been happening at length. This is a mock-up of the art that I just wanted to share with you all, and she gave us rights to share. I thought it was really great of her. And this project, while staff are working on it right now, you'll see the paint on the wall and the installation in spring of 2023. And as you all know, we're on our 15th month of a 2-year service agreement with San Luis Obispo Museum of Arts. And the agreement is for the administrative management of downtown installations and roundabouts. And this partnership has produced some beautiful art that I know you've had the opportunity to see over the last 15 months. And to talk about that, I'd like to invite up Emma Saperstein to share about it.
Thanks, Megan. I'm really here on behalf of my beloved director, Leanne, who hopefully is enjoying a Michigan autumn right now. But yes, we've been in this partnership for 15 months, and I've been in my role at the museum as chief curator since May of 2021. So we're all very much learning together as we navigate all that it means to introduce public art and support public art in this community. I'm very proud personally, and the museum is very proud, and I hope the city is very proud of what we've been able to do within this partnership in the past 15 months. These 4 major projects that you see, Maria Molteni's mural, Seven Sisters, which is on the back of the Fremont Theater, which has become very beloved. The recently installed sculpture in the Tank Farm and Orchid Roundabout, which happened just a couple of weeks ago. And then the 2 sculptures that are on the museum's lawn right by Mission Plaza. And I felt like it was important to note that that sculpture program, we've designed it sort of to be rotating so that there's always something new that's happening every year. So Camille Hoffman's sculpture, which is up right now, will come down in the spring, and we'll continue on that yearly cycle. And we'll navigate what that looks like when the bathrooms are under construction. But we're excited about that opportunity, and we're able to collaborate with RRM to design a platform that had minimal impact to the ground, but was able to hold some large-scale sculptures. I don't have to say much for you all to notice that we're in really good company in the arts here with Cal Poly and the museum, and the city's support of that is really, really special. My colleagues in other cities are pretty amazed at all the support for public art that's coming out of San Luis Obispo, so thank you all.
Thank you, Emma. And the partnership with SLOMA, as you know, has been integral in what the city has been able to produce over the last 15 months. And so before I turn the platform over to you all with any questions you might have, I'd like to share with you, thank you, what you can expect from the public art program in the next year. So firstly, you can definitely expect continued partnerships. As we talked about, without the partnerships, we wouldn't have the strength and the momentum to keep the public art program going. So you can expect these continued partnerships that will lead to enhanced programming related to the arts for both our local and our visiting communities. And this will include our walking tours, scavenger hunts, and using the arts to activate our parks, which has been outlined in both the Public Art Master Plan as well as the Parks and Recreation Blueprint for the future. You can expect that staff will be committed to reviewing our current policy within all departments to streamline the public art and private and public spaces, as well as evaluating CIP projects for the integration of public art. You can expect installations, again, the crowning glory. You can expect more roundabouts, a box art program in spring of 2023, and hopefully one in October of 2023. And you can expect CIP projects. And finally, you can expect October 2023, a true celebration within the city and a partnership with our city tourism department, Parks and Recreation, to bring, and all of our community partners to bring the National Month of Arts and Humanities to life. And we are already planning activities that will include our downtown businesses, our local art community, our visitors, and our local residents. So lots to look forward to. Thank you.
Wow, that was a lot of information. Thank you so much. You just wrapped all that up, and really exciting to see that, we're being able to celebrate arts in the Arts Month, so that's also great. And thank you so much, Emma, for coming today, because I really cherish our partnership with the SLO Museum of Art. Any initial comments from my colleague, questions from my colleagues? Okay, City Manager, you look like you're posed to say something, poised to
Yeah,
say
I was
something.
just gonna add that, one of the reasons we're here is because of the amazing partnerships with SLOMA, Cal Poly, but I also just want to remind the council that this is part of our major city goal, activating the arts, and it ties to many of our major city goals. This is about inclusion, this is about exploring the other, and so this is a way for us to partner with people to really open up our community to not only performing artists, but to visual artists. I shared earlier today just my warm regards for the Performing Arts Center, and I'll share with you, there was a story shared by Molly this week about a Latino family that got to see an artist perform at the PAC last week. And she had heard this artist her entire life, and it was a dream of hers to be able to see this artist in person. And then to see that person in town was a dream for her to come true. And so just know that you're impacting people's lives with this in very small ways. And there's lots of stories that will be told and not be told, and we just get to be a part of that.
Thank you so much. Councilmember Pease.
Thank you. And just briefly, could you recap how the public art is funded, right? There's a development fee that goes with that, and somebody could just remind us.
Yeah, there's multiple layers. We have kind of our own line item budget out of general fund, local revenue measure G20 was part of that. Council direction to help support a lot of those funds, and we also have that percentage that comes out of our local developers as well, similar to our park system as well. Yeah.
Great, thank you so much. Great work.
Councilmember Marks.
Thank you. Yes, I just wanted to commend the Public Arts Program. I think it's very important, an important statement of the values of the city. And it also is just a lot of fun, just walking around and seeing, whoa, they painted a giant poppy on that underpass. I can't believe it, so there's really, I think it really helps everyone. And I think it helped a lot during the depths of COVID to just keep people's spirits up. So thank you very much.
Thank you. And I know you mentioned that there were many people in Public Works and other city employees that helped decide the public art. Are there members in the community that are part of the public art committees as well, the selection process as well?
There are. So when the city is installing a piece of art that's gone through a selection process, and there's different ways of selecting art. So if we go through a way that is a public process, we have a jury selected to either support a piece or sometimes to select the piece. It depends on how the jury is laid out. There have been opportunities where the city has chosen a sole source, and therefore it's been approved through council at public forum. But typically, it's through a jury who provides guidance on the installation. Yes.
Great, thank you. I've received quite a few comments recently about how the process works, so thank you. Councilmember Shorsman.
Yeah, just to clarify, if somebody does want to participate in that process, how do they do that?
In the jury process,
Yes.
I would encourage them to reach out to me directly, and we can put their name on a list of potential jurors for an upcoming opportunity. Thank you.
Yeah, and a lot of the juries are selected for the location of the artwork, section of town, local businesses, community members who might live in that area. And then we also have those great partnerships. I know Emma and her team have been able to rally some really great feedback and knowledgeable people to help us in this process, so we get the best of the best.
And just tagging on that, our public art manual actually outlines who we need to have be a part of those juries as well. So we can, using all of those tools together to build a robust, transparent, and hopefully non-biased jury.
Perfect, thank you. I know you can get that manual online too, so people can check that out. Awesome. Thank you so much for your presentation. We greatly appreciate it, and glad that you are in the role, Megan. Okay, next up we have City Manager Johnson and the City Manager report.
All right, thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the council. I just want to take a moment to give a quick shout out to our IT department. They came back from the Municipal Information Systems Association of California, and we got 3 awards. The Visual Information Award app for developing the tracking the homeless camps around town. This was an innovative effort. The app allows a homeless camp to be tagged and then route services or to clean up to the site. They also received an Excellence in IT Practices Award where the team was rated as outstanding. This is a huge achievement as the program is designed to be a complete audit of the organization. So the next time you see the IT colleague, give them a high five or congratulate them on the well done. There is one other award that I want to congratulate them on. They were just awarded a $100,000 grant from the Public Utilities Commission to fund a comprehensive broadband plan for the city. And I want to thank Josh for leading that effort. You may recall that we allocated ARPA funding for that effort, and so that basically frees up those dollars for future implementation. Now shifting to update of a lot of the construction projects in and around town. So we'll be paving, adding temporary striping, and adding permanent striping throughout the week. In Laguna Lake neighborhoods, we've added some temporary striping. We've swept some of the affected areas and cleaned the streets. We're adding the permanent striping throughout the week on various streets, which will result in Madonna Road and Los Osos Road having some lane closures. And we plan to work on this from 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. In the North Broad Choro Foothill neighborhoods, improvements are at the intersection of Broad and Lincoln are almost complete, and we'll continue to work to improve curb ramps. Expect the work in this neighborhood to happen from 7 to 4, and then we'll be adding permanent striping on Ramona Drive, Cerro Romaldo, and Patricia Drive, which will result in lane closures all week. And we plan to have work on this from 7 to 4 p.m. Sewer replacement work on this neighborhood is almost complete. A full closure is expected on Ramona Drive between Palomar and Verde Drive all week long. Now shifting to downtown, this week we'll be adding the permanent striping to streets we repave and adding temporary striping to last week's pavement. We plan to work on a different street each day, which will result in lane closures all week. The work is expected to occur from about 10 p.m. at night, and they work all night to 10 a.m. And we'll be repaving at the beginning of the week in areas we missed last week, and we plan to have lane closures at those intersections, and you can expect those areas to be paved from 3 a.m. to 10 a.m. We also plan to complete the transportation mobility improvements on north of Higuera and Napomo streets later this week, so continuing that work. And we'll be adding the commemorative bronze medallions to our completed bike medians during the middle of the week. In the Railroad District, we plan to repave the parking lot, which is largely done, and the roundabout at Railroad Avenue. And at the beginning of the week, we'll be adding permanent striping. Completed work, we've completed the transportation and mobility improvements on the east corner of Higuera and Napomo streets, and the curb ramps are now fully accessible, so a lot of work. So that's this year's paving work, which is a mouthful. And so now we're already thinking about summer of 2023. So I just want to let the community know if you have ideas about how you want to provide input about specifically the areas that we plan to pave as part of our pavement management plan. We'll be holding a workshop on Tuesday, October the 25th from 5 to 7 p.m. It's an open house style. And so the planned projects include Monterey Street from California to Santa Rosa, California Boulevard, Phillips to Monterey, Johnson Avenue, Bouchon to Laurel, Santa Barbara Avenue from Left to Broad, Orcutt Street, Palm Street, and Morrow Street. I won't go all to the additional details. And so this is a significant effort moving forward. And this is a ripe opportunity for us to implement key pieces of our active transportation plan. So as we continue to do repaving, that's our shot to make sure that we're implementing projects that the community wants and consistent with our goals. So shifting from moving cars to parking cars, we want to report on the access and parking management plan. So the active transportation committee meeting was moved from November 17th to November 3rd. So we'll be highlighting this, but in case you went to the downtown breakfast and you had November 17th in your books, we had to move that because we had too much of an agenda that night. And then the Planning Commission meeting is still the same. We've been making a lot of improvements downtown. I think 50% of the two-sided signs are done. We're working on some changes to each of the pay stations to extend the duration of the timeout period. You'll see some other enhancements, and we are really seeing an uptick of people using the app. And I think the last numbers we saw is about 27% of our transactions, people are using the app. So that's slowly growing, and we'll certainly have more information for you here in the future. With that, I want to invite Bea Makakau, our DEI manager, up and talk a little bit about how we've collaborated recently on a regional symposium to build some momentum in our region.
Yeah, thank you. Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of the council. Really excited to share with you that on October 5th, the City of SLO co-hosted its inaugural Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Symposium for Santa Barbara and San Luis Obispo counties at the Santa Maria Fair Park. 125 people across those counties participated in the program, and the event's theme was moving from words to action, integrating diversity, equity, and inclusion into your organization. Participants heard from Dr. Isom, Cal Poly's Chief Diversity Officer, on how to become change makers within our organizations to advance DEI and how we can tackle complex problems with informed solutions. The remainder of the day included 2 informational panels on inclusive organizational culture, which I'm proud to say was made up of our SLO City and county staff from HR, PD, and behavioral health, and a panel on new generation recruiting. This was an exciting first step in building coalition across our regions and our shared efforts to become more inclusive, welcoming, and equitable communities. Thank you.
Thanks, Bea. It was an exciting day for all of us, and I really appreciate all the commitment it took to pull that off. Just a couple more slides. Just want to talk a little bit about the Ready, Set, Go wildfire preparedness town halls. They are the best ways to prepare for wildfire, to ready the home and the property, create action and emergency communication plans, and how and when to evacuate. We had about 70 people participate, and then if you want more information, you can go to slocity.org/wildfire, and a big thanks to San Luis Coastal for letting us their facilities. The next item, just want to, as we approach the holiday season, we've got the annual Boo Bash on October 28th from 5 to 9, includes a movie over at Meadow Park. We'll have ranger educational hikes on November 6th, at Reservoir Canyon. And then Rec is Rad are continuing our events from 3:30 to 5 in October, held on Tuesdays at Johnson Park. Also, I just want to share some data with the community about the investments that we've made as we go to the next slide. The Railroad Safety Trail, Taft to Pepper, is already serving about 800 peds and bikes per day. So thus far, it's carried over 116,000 ped and 43,000 bike trips since its opening. So a big shout out to SLOCOG for all of its work and its support. And we can see how these connections really can make a difference in our community. And last, I just want to public safety recognition. Over the weekend, the Elks Lodge honored public safety members at their annual First Responders Dinner. From the police department, Sergeant Brian Trainer received the award along with our neighborhood outreach manager, Christine Wallace, for service. And then engineer Patrick Larson was honored for always going above, beyond the duty. And Engineer Larson has a true servant's heart, and we're lucky to have him serve in our community. And I encourage you, if you don't know Patrick, to get to meet him and learn about some of the stories. He has done some great things on duty and off duty. And with that, that concludes my report.
Thank you. Excuse me. Thank you so much. As always, you pack a lot of interesting information in. 2 questions for you. The slow in motion. I've gotten some comments at times that the notices, people don't know when it's happening on their street. Can you tell a little bit more about how the notices work?
Sure, I'm going to
Mr.
invite Director Horn. So I live in one of those neighborhoods, so there's constant posting. And so some of it lives through the night, some of it doesn't and gets knocked down. And so they're constantly reposting. So, but I'll turn it over to Matt.
Absolutely, yeah, thank you. So during a slurry project, there's numerous streets that we're planning on doing in a specific day. If something happens, a traffic control issue, a piece of equipment breaks down, material supply issues, we cannot do all those streets during that day. And so that day gets canceled and rescheduled for a following day. I understand it's a huge inconvenience to the community, but trying to get the contractors in and out in a minimum amount of time versus, you know, the unexpected equipment breaking or material malfunction, it's something that it's in construction, it's something that we just have to deal with. And so it is an inconvenience, but as of right now, our only other option would be to really slow back the construction process, and that would very much slow down our ability to get work done and increase the cost of it to the community.
Thank you, and while you're here, can you also tell me, with the railroad district, when it's getting paved, what will happen to the safe parking, the overnight parking?
That's a great question. I believe that area is not within the scope of the repaving effort of the parking lot, but we can confirm. We'll confirm, at least from what I've seen, at least all the striping was still on the ground, but we'll confirm back to the city council.
Yeah, sorry about that. I don't know the answer off the top of my head, but we'll get the information for you.
No problem, thank you. That was just surprising in your
Yeah.
report, so I thought I better
Yeah,
ask.
it's everything north, I understand, of the route towards Cafe Roma that's been all prepped, everything else hasn't, and so, but if we are gonna pave it, we'll communicate our plans to accommodate safe parking during that period.
Great, thank you both. Councilmember Pease.
I wanted to give a shout out and maybe get an update on the app, the Ask Slow. I'm a huge fan of the new app. You can take a photo and it marks where it is, and you upload it. You register once, you get a remark right away. I've used it twice now. One to report some sand in the road that seemed like it might be a concern, and then another one for there was a new sign, and so I sent in a thank you. So do you know if it's kind of getting out there with the youth?
Good evening, council members. Yeah, it's starting to grow in popularity, and we did a soft rollout just focused on community services departments first, and we've been slowly adding, and we are seeing it start to snowball, and folks are using it. As our users go to Ask Slow and input information about service requests or concerns that they have, or thank yous, we love that, we'll continue to evolve it. So it's very much a live program, and so staff are able to see trends in what people are asking questions about or identifying, and we're able to actually add new categories and information to the app. So really appreciate council members letting folks know that they can use Ask Slow to make direct contact with us, and then soon, as we build them, we'll be providing metrics to you on how it's going, and what our turnaround time is on it, and what the type of major issues are that are coming through the software.
Thank
Awesome, great question. Councilmember Marks.
Thanks. No, I just want to also say that app is great for reporting graffiti. You just take a picture of the graffiti, and then you can upload it through the app, and it's like almost instantaneous. It's so much faster than reporting graffiti otherwise. So, and by taking a photograph, they know exactly where it is, and they know what it looks like. And so I hope that everyone will join the effort to report graffiti. Thank you.
Yeah, we haven't really begun the big push on comms push, so we're just working out the kinks, and we have the kinks worked out. We're gonna do a media campaign to hopefully get some uptake of the app.
Awesome, thank you so much, and thank you for the report. Next, we have public comment for items not on the agenda, and then we'll take a quick break right after that. City Clerk?
Cooper Leinhardt, Mary Jane Jodry, and Jeffrey Speck.
Good evening. My name is Cooper Leinhart, and I'm a member of the nonprofit organization, the Slow Beaver Brigade. I'm here to tell you about the amazing opportunity we have to partner with beavers so that with little to no cost, we can proactively defend ourselves against our greatest environmental problems: fire, drought, groundwater loss, climate change, and also water quality, floods, erosion, and biodiversity loss. How can beavers possibly address all these problems? It all boils down to their ability to hold water on our landscape. Beavers are native, and they used to live in every river, lake, and stream in the county until they were hunted to near extinction for their fur. Right now, most of our rivers and streams are incised and degraded, so whenever the rains come, the water just rushes straight to the ocean. And by summer, many of our streams are completely dry. But beavers are able to naturally reverse this process. Beaver families build a series of dams in creeks and rivers, which give them deep ponds where they can escape from predators. These dams slow the water down, spreading it out and allowing it to sink into the groundwater. Think slow it, spread it, sink it. The beavers can turn these single-thread streams into lush wetlands, and that's where we see all these ecosystem benefits. Vegetation thrives around beaver ponds, so you have this wide, consistent water surrounded by healthy trees that are also full of water. This combination makes for perfect fire buffers. Scientists studying this found that even during mega wildfires, beaver wetlands just won't burn. This could really benefit our own firefighters to have these natural fire breaks so they can surround and contain fires before they spread. As for droughts and recharging our groundwater basins, beavers hold water on the landscape and underground. Each dam forces water underground where it reconnects to the groundwater basin, thus recharging our aquifers at every dam. But that's not all. It also settles out and catches pollutants, heavy metals, and excess nutrients. And then the water resurfaces downstream, cooler and cleaner, perfect for frogs and fish such as steelhead trout. Governor Newsom just launched the Beaver Restoration Program this summer, which makes it easier to do low-cost, beaver-based restoration projects, and it finally allows us to relocate beavers instead of forcing people to have them killed. So now is the perfect time for us to embrace beavers and save our water. I could talk about beavers all day, but it's much more impactful to see it and feel it yourself. So I invite you all to join us on one of our free educational tours to the beaver ponds in Atascadero. We have one this Sunday, October 23rd, or on Saturday, November 5th from 9:30 to 11:30 a.m. You can sign up and find more information on our website, slowbeaverbrigade.com. Thanks, I hope to see you there.
Thank you so much. I didn't go through the rules, but no clapping or booing. Little happy. I know, it was fantastic. Little, clapping this way totally works well. Just FYI. Thank you very much.
Hello, my name is Mary Jane Jodry. I've attended a city council meeting a few months ago and spoke with you all about the parking structure. My son was Thomas Jodry, the young man who fell from the Marsh Street parking structure and died a couple of years ago. And he was the third person in a 5-year period to have died in these structures. I told you all I would go to Sacramento and ask for the money because apparently we don't have the money to update and put in the safety features we need. We need cameras, we need call boxes, more of them, and we also need coverings on the windows. And just to let you know, I did just that. I had a meeting with Senator Laird last week, and the Tribune and the Mustang News were both in attendance. They took a lot of notes. And Senator Laird is going to contact you all. We're going to talk about what we need to do to move this forward. I thank you all for all your help, and I will continue to be around to do these things. I don't have an unlimited amount of energy, but when I have a goal, and public safety has always been something that has been very important to me, especially in raising 4 children and working in the healthcare field. I was a radiology tech for many years, and I saw way too many people have slip and falls and all kinds of other things. But anyway, I included my letter to John Laird, and just wanted to let you know I had a vigil for my son at the parking structure on September 14th. Actually, it was the 16th this year. And somebody put together some informal petitions. We have a lot of signatures, so there is a lot of public interest in having these safety features put in. So I'm going to leave this with you, and thank you all for your time. And hope you all contact me after you speak with Senator Laird. Thank you.
Thank you so much. City Clerk? Is Jeffrey Speck next? Okay, thank you.
Good evening. My name is Jeffrey Specht, lifetime resident and candidate for mayor here in San Luis. What I usually speak about at these meetings is what I believe to be local corruption, misuse of the people's money, etc. Most recently, your staff, your clerk, on my candidate statement, altered my candidate statement. You can go to spectsolutions.org to view her admitting to doing so. The level of incompetence that is coming out of staff must be addressed. What we're seeing here is not elected officials making good decisions. We're watching a dictative staff run the show. How is it that items like murals and art are able to make it to the agenda, yet items like fixing the parking garage and getting cameras in these parking garages never seem to make it? Why is staff not able to put these on the agenda? Is art more important than the safety of our community? How is it that this particular administration sits back and ignores the obvious before your eyes? Nothing important makes it to your agenda. Staff does not put it on the agenda. And it takes 3 of you being elected officials to be able to do such a thing unless staff decides to do this. Where are your priorities? Are they with art, or are they with the safety of our community? Is staff allowed to make reckless mistakes on important issues like candidate statements to mislead we the people? You folks need to vote and put it on the agenda so the mayor alone or 2 of our council members can get items placed on the agenda. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Any other?
Yes, we have one more, Geraldine Clemens,
Thank you.
and that's the final one. Thanks.
Hi, council. This is the first time I'm here to talk, and I am here because I am to support the Slow Beaver Brigade. We really need to bring those beavers back, and I want to encourage y'all to go to the spot in Atascadero. It's really a cool place. And I used to live in Atascadero, Santa Ynez Avenue, Santa Ynez Street. We had a stream behind us. There were beavers back there, and they really helped to, keep, it was just really cool. See, now I'm losing all my train of thought. I'm trying to be really relaxed in all this. Anyway, the reason I heard about you guys, that the city wants to work on the flood control program, right? I saw it on the news, and my first thought is we really need to reintroduce our beavers back, because they can do so much if we allow them to help, to help, number one, with the drought, with the drought. That's already been said. I feel like I'm just repeating myself. I mean, after listening to him, he's really, he has his stuff all down. The thing is, we need to learn how to utilize nature. Nature is here to benefit us as well as we are here to benefit nature. And if we allow them to come back into their native areas where they were plentiful at one time until, like, we killed them off, just killed them off. And even in recent history, they're just considered pests. All these animals that we have, listed as pests, they are not pests. A beaver is not a pest. They are serving a purpose. When they build their dams, like was already stated, that water, it's like a sponge. All the water just flows down, right? It helps to extend our aquifers. We have farmers. I have friends that are ranchers, farmers out in Paso Robles. They don't have any water anymore. And if we could start to put these things into effect here locally, it's going to take a while for all of the positive effects to occur. But we need to start taking this into consideration now, today. This is a perfect opportunity. It really is. What with the new legislation that Governor Newsom just implemented, and you have the California Department of Fish and Wildlife that's going to be helping to get this stuff implemented. I just want to see us do it.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thanks for listening.
Okay, we're going to take about 5 minutes, and we'll be back at 7:05. No, that'd be longer, sorry. My math, 6:53. Thanks. All right, thanks everybody for taking a quick break. And before we get to the consent agenda, wanted to go ahead and just kind of mention a few things that were mentioned at public comment. Councilmember Pease.
Thank you. I just wanted to give a quick shout out of support and appreciation to our city clerk, Teresa Purrington, and our entire clerk's office. They are outstanding professionals that do so much behind the scenes to make this whole system work, and I'm just really grateful. Thank you.
Thank you. City Manager, did you want to do that now, or did you want to wait until Ms. Jodry came back?
Why don't we go ahead and wait just a moment? I can provide some information about the mayor's and I's conversation with Senator Laird, and then just some things that we plan on doing with the parking structures, both as part of the current financial plan and then longer term.
Great, thank you so much. Oops. While we're waiting, we could go ahead and do the consent agenda and then come back to that. Sound good? Great. She's. Okay, so if you have a comment on something in the consent agenda, please get your comment slip into the city clerk at this time. Otherwise, we'll go ahead and start chatting about the consent agenda. Does anyone need to take anything off of the consent agenda? Nope. Okay, great. And before we get there, I just want to say thank you so much to Franklin Pandoy, Carrie Duperon, Justin Cooley, Dave Houghton, Brian Nelson, and Chelsea Moore. our advisory bodies that we'll be talking about today, the people who serve on our advisory bodies, they really truly, they give us the information so that we can make better decisions going forward. And really, I love that we have so many community members involved in our advisory bodies. So moving on to Councilmember Shoresman.
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of echo the same thing, just continuously impressed with the activism of our community members and willingness to serve, and to have more people wanting to serve than we have positions just puts us in a really difficult position every single time, and just continue to appreciate the activism of the community.
Thank you. City Clerk, do we have any comments?
No, we do not.
Okay, so Councilmember Pease.
I'd like to move the consent agenda.
All right, Vice Mayor Christensen.
I'll second.
City Clerk, can we have roll call, please?
Councilmember Pease?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Christensen?
Yes.
Councilmember Marks?
Yes.
Councilmember Shoresman?
Yes.
Mayor Stewart?
Yes, and the motion passes 5-0. Thank you. All right, I was really hoping. Should we see if she's outside?
Madam Mayor, if I can just address the issue, and then we can just circle back with Ms. Chaudhry, and so I can ask our parking manager, Gavin Hussey, to reach out. But we did have a conversation with Senator Laird, both the mayor and myself, following the meeting that she had with the senator, and certainly, we continue to take a look at what we can do. I will say that we did provide an assessment of our 3 existing structures, and so we have some capital improvement programs that we'll be moving forward with that will be addressing safety in the structures. Longer term, for the next financial plan, I'm going to be working with the Public Works Department to scope what might be a phase plan for adding cameras in the 3 structures, and then making sure that the 4th structure comes with them. The challenge, I think I've shared this before, with the existing 3 structures with, I think, significant engineering alterations, is that they are engineered structures. And so it is not as simple as adding metal to some of the openings or the fenestration. There's a lot of factors that need to be taken into consideration. So we need to be thoughtful about that, and it's a significant financial undertaking. One of the pieces of information that the senator did share, is this may not come as a surprise to many people, is that there is no public financing or public grants for parking. So it would really have to be something that would be self-funded at the local level to make that happen. And I think we've identified that it would, significant alterations to the structures would be quite a cost. So we're going to have to look at the value engineering of what we can do to make some marginal improvements in some of the structures.
Thank you. And yes, I think the cameras are a perfect example of something we can do sooner than later. And I think that's going to be very helpful in public safety. Okay, next we'll move into public hearing. City Clerk, do you have what you need in my green pause?
No, we're good. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, so we have Molly Kano and Clint Pierce for the Tourism Business Improvement Development Annual Report.
I'll just kick things off really quick as Molly is getting set up. So good evening, Mayor and Council members. I'm happy to be here tonight to introduce the annual report on our tourism program. And as you know, tourism is an important part of how we provide services to our community and achieve our goals. But it's not just through a revenue stream, which we will talk about tonight. It's also through the stories that we tell about our community through the tourism work that we do. And those are stories of both who we are, but also who we strive to be through ultimately accomplishing our goals. And those stories really matter. And just yesterday, San Luis Obispo, thanks to Molly's work, was featured in a travel publication. And the story was titled, "Little Cities That Think Big, 8 Forward-Thinking Destinations Across the United States." And in the article, it stated, major metropolises are often known for their innovation and creativity, but these smaller towns and cities punch above their weight and demonstrate leadership in conservation, sustainability, and social justice, and the inherent creativity of the resourceful. This is all made possible by our TBID board, including our board chair, Clint Pierce, and our tourism manager, Molly Kano, and I'm very happy to turn it over to them for the presentation.
All right, good evening. Well, thank you, Mayor Stewart and members of the council. I am so happy to be here this evening with you all to share with you the annual report for the Tourism Business Improvement District for fiscal year 21-22. And it is my sincere pleasure to be presenting tonight along with Mr. Clint Pierce, the owner of the Madonna Inn, and of course, our Tourism Business Improvement District Board Chair.
Thank you, Molly. And a good evening, Mayor Stewart, members of council. It's my pleasure to be here tonight to help present our annual report. And we're really proud of it. We are always proud of it, but this is an exceptional year.
So together, we will present the annual report for the district as forwarded to you by the district. So this was approved by our advisory board. During the presentation, we will refer to the Tourism Business Improvement District. It's a mouthful, so we'll refer to it as the TBID. And tonight's presentation is just part one of a two-part process. You will be hearing from us again on November 1st during our public hearing. All right, so before you this evening, there are two recommendations. The recommendations are, as recommended by the Tourism Business Improvement District Board, to receive and to approve the TBID's annual report for fiscal year 21-22, and to adopt the resolution of intention to levy and collect the assessments within the TBID area for fiscal year 22-23 at the same rate as 21-22, which is 2%. So to give you just a little bit of background on the TBID, the TBID was established in 2008. So just this October 1st, we celebrated our 14th anniversary. We are growing up. The district is made up of an advisory body of a seven-member board. The TBID is funded through a special assessment. And so that special assessment is charged to all lodging properties for the industry by the industry at 2% of gross receipts. The constituent base is made up of all TOT paying businesses in the city. That includes hotels, motels, inns, B&Bs, and of course our permitted homestays as well. Currently, our district represents 43 lodging properties and about 128 permitted homestays. The ordinance was implemented in according to the state's Streets and Highways Code that stipulates that the assessment has to be used for tourism marketing to benefit the hotel operators within the district. The use of funding, of course, is recommended by that seven-member board, and which, of course, is appointed by council and comprises the lodging business owners, operators, and managers. The ordinance requires that the board submit an annual report to the city council to give a account of the use of the funding and the program. The board has approved this report that is being presented to you tonight at their September meeting and now recommends that council pass the resolution of intention to continue the district.
The TBID board is a working board, meaning that we create, direct, and approve all programs and expenditures of TBID for the lodging properties in San Luis Obispo. As you can see, there was a significant amount of turnover on the TBID board over the last fiscal year. In fact, there were 5 resignations resulting in 3 new appointments, including myself, now the board chair. I was on the TBID board years ago, and I'm really excited. I had asked Molly, hey, if you have any openings, I'd really like to get back on there. Or apply to get back on there and go through the process. And so anyway, so on the board of 7, that meant a lot of change. We would like to acknowledge and share our appreciation, big appreciation for the city clerk. And it seems like she's there almost every meeting swearing a new member in, so thank you so much. And the city council and your oversight and help along the way with us, so we appreciate that. It manages us through the transition, and as we work hard to fill each of these vacancies as expeditiously as possible so that we can continue to move forward with our important work programs. And we feel like, it's just important for our community as it is for our properties. We see it as as much community work as business work. So because of this transition in January, the TBID board stopped holding subcommittee meetings and instead began holding a monthly special meeting in addition to our regular board meeting. This was done to ensure that decisions were being made and projects were being moved forward while operating with multiple vacancies. The board met a total of 17 meetings over the course of the year, equating to more than 34 volunteer hours per board member. The work could not have been done exclusively by the board, and that's an understatement. The TBID team is led by a dedicated work of the city's tourism manager, the amazing Molly Cano. Molly, I mean, absolutely, it wouldn't happen without Molly. And supported by numerous other city team members that contribute to our work efforts. The tourism staff supports the TBID board in directing a valuable team of contractors who bring the board's vision to life. In 21-22, that team included our marketing agency of record, the team of Noble Studios and DCI. Our social media management team was Badger Branding, and the unique contracted services through the team at the SLO Chamber of Commerce, who they've been with us every step of the way also and are invaluable. For coordinated public relations efforts and the delivery of incredible guest services.
And so fiscal 21-22 was definitely an incredible year for tourism here in San Luis Obispo. Taking a look at the year by the numbers, as you can see from this chart, there were huge gains that were achieved this year across all performance metrics that we watch. Most notably is our $10 million TOT year that we achieved this fiscal year. So 54% increase over last year's TOT collection, and really it crushed our TOT budget that was set by about $3.4 million. So those are additional funds, of course, that are added. Our TOT revenue goes directly back into our city's general fund to help achieve and pursue all of the programming and experiences that take place here in the city of San Luis Obispo. In addition to that, as we dive a little bit deeper, you can see that our occupancy was at about 67%. That's a 15% increase from last year. While this is an exciting number to see and to see continue to grow, it is important to note that we actually have not hit the occupancy number that we were at prior to the pandemic. A couple of components are attributed to this. One, there are additional new properties that we have here in the city, so new rooms, as well as, the conscious approach that we are taking when it comes to sustainability in our destination. And so we understand that while we continue to see visitors coming in, really being able to market ourselves to providing the best experience and the types of visitors that can enjoy San Luis Obispo. In addition, our average daily rate, or ADR, is an example of that. So you see here that we achieved $195 per room, or average daily rate, basically the rate to stay. That's a 24% increase over last fiscal year. But when we compare that to the pre-pandemic timeframe, so like 18-19, it's $60 more per night, essentially. So we're seeing that while there may be less guests coming, they are paying higher rates, which again, as I mentioned before, also help contribute and help us achieve some of our sustainability goals that we continue to work towards.
When you look at the annual performance of TOT, you can see from this chart that the $10.6 billion collected in fiscal year 21-22 was unprecedented. For comparison, in 2008, when the TBID was formed, TOT was around $4 million annually. There are several factors that contribute to the results of this year. First, going into fiscal year 21-22, there was significant pent-up demand for travel created by the pandemic. And as a side note, we're still seeing that. There was predictions that it was going to taper off. It's still staying strong and matching numbers from last year, which was incredibly strong, especially the last half of last year. When people were able to travel again, they chose destinations like ours. They also had budget available to spend on travel. Secondly, we have about 10% more room inventory, as Molly mentioned, in our community than we had pre-pandemic. This includes the reopening and now full operation of Hotel SLO and Hotel Cerro, plus the city's newest property, the Town Place Suites, which just opened in December.
So taking a look at our TOT figures by month, we saw our typical trend, which was that kind of inverted bell curve. So with our really strong kind of summer and then spring time frame, but then kind of dipping off into our winter months. But what's most notable when we look at this is to see that we achieved for the first time ever in city's history, $1 million TOT collection in one single month. And we not only saw that in 1 month last fiscal year, we actually saw that achieve that in 3 months. So July, April, and then again in June. When we take a look at the distribution of TOT, as I mentioned before, here within the city of San Luis Obispo, contributing to TOT as well as the TBID assessment are all lodging properties that make up our community here in SLO. So that includes our hotels, motels, inns, B&Bs, as well as our permitted homestay properties. When we look at the breakout of the distribution for TOT in 21-22, we had 94% of the TOT collection coming from our traditional hotels and about 6% of that coming from our homestay properties.
In terms of financials, the TBID maintains a balanced budget. The figures displayed represent the total allocated budget from fiscal year 21-22. However, as referenced in the staff report, the unaudited year-end TBID assessment revenue is $2.1 million, which is approximately $320,000 more than the budgeted amount reflected in the city's adopted financial plan supplement. The difference will be available for carryover to the fiscal year 22-23 TBID program budget.
So how did we get here? Well, the TBID maintains a robust, comprehensive marketing program to ensure a strong and responsible visitation here in our city that results in overnight stays, of course, at our TBID properties, but also a vibrant visitor economy for our community overall.
And this is driven by our 5-year TBID strategic plan that serves as the roadmap for aspiration for the TBID's efforts, and by laying out the pillars of focus through defined strategic imperatives. The TBID uses the strategic plan to create the marketing and business plan objectives to focus on for that year. This year, the TBID focused on the following strategic plan imperatives. 1, to elevate the SLO brand and experience, including the initiatives to identify the core SLO identity and develop a plan to market it, and also to develop a TBID destination stewardship program or approach, which is now our Sustainable SLO program. And then 2, to deliver smart growth, which included an approach to monitor local sentiment related to tourism and a focus on midweek travel promotion.
And a major focus this fiscal year was also research. That played a key role in a lot of the work that we do. Within this research, specifically, were the programs that we have outlined here. These studies provided data and valuable insights to guide the efforts for the development of the various TBID programs and positioning. The information is increasingly important as trends, behaviors, preferences, and the motivators of travelers have changed since the pandemic. The EDI co-op, so that co-op in particular was a research study, for example, that was an opportunity for us to co-op with Visit SLOCAL, our countywide marketing entity, to identify gaps in our tourism marketing initiatives within 5 audience segments, including Black travelers, Hispanic and Latino travelers, Asian travelers, travelers with disabilities, and the LGBTQ+ travelers. These findings provided direction to us that we were then able to directly implement into our programs provided us the direction as we pursued images and messaging that will enable the TBID to effectively communicate with these audiences and invite them into San Luis Obispo. A few takeaways from this program in particular included that San Luis Obispo does have a relatively high level of familiarity among diverse travelers, especially those in California, which of course is really important for us because the main markets that we focus our tourism marketing investments in is of course within California and our drive markets. The city, from a traveler perspective, is seen as safe, welcoming, and a tolerant destination, and a strong majority of the travelers within every segment provided that response to us.
Relating to the brand equity and brand tracker research, over the 13 years that the TBID has been in operation, the organization has struggled with the public-facing identity. As part of the strategic plan work to elevate the SLO brand and experience, in fiscal year 21-22, the board tackled this issue for the TBID from a naming standpoint within the Visit San Luis Obispo brand, the TBID organization, and the San Luis Obispo destination. As a result, the TBID adopted a new approach to the identity. The SLO TBID will now be referred to as Visit San Luis Obispo.
The Visit San Luis Obispo brand platform focuses on telling our story in a few ways. So our brand position, which is our home base away from home, our brand promise to our visitors is a chance to live the slow life, and our brand purpose, why we do what we do, is hearts in beds. And to ensure that the TBID's marketing programs are intercepting travelers across all stages of their traveler journey, the TBID utilizes a number of different marketing levers across that journey, from dreaming to planning to booking to experiencing when they're here, and then of course to sharing the stories that they've had while they've been here.
And the fiscal year 2021-22 was an impactful year for the TBID. But to best show you our accomplishments, the TBID has compiled a video of our highlights. We like it too. Thanks. So as we transition into the 2022-23, we are diving into our work. Some of the programs we are focused on include diversity, equity, and inclusion approach in all TBID programs, expanding the Sustainable SLO program, establishing the Visit San Luis Obispo brand, and redesign of visitslo.com. While these aren't the only subjects, these areas will fully influence our work in the 2022-23 year.
And so in conclusion, here are the recommendations before you tonight. The first is to receive and to approve our TBID annual report for fiscal year 21-22. And the second is to adopt the resolution of intention to levy and collect the assessments within the TBID area for fiscal year 22-23 at the same rate as in fiscal 21-22, which is 2%. And then to schedule that public hearing, which we have scheduled for November 1st, 2022. And so with that, thank you for hearing our presentation, and we'd be happy to answer any questions that you have for us.
Wow, that was a lot. And the video was very fancy, thank you. Let me just ask you real quick, did you say 17 or 70 volunteer hours?
17 meetings.
Yeah, 17
Okay,
meetings,
thank you.
34 volunteer hours
Yes.
per board member.
Okay, thank you so
So
very much.
essentially, we're having 2 meetings a month.
Gotcha, thank you. I
And they're about
appreciate that.
2 hours each. There's prep and there's other work too, so.
Yeah, that's amazing, thank you so much. Okay, Councilmember Pease.
Thank you so much, great presentation, and I singled that out in the staff report also, the 17 meetings, wow. So thank you to all of that team, that's amazing. Excited about seeing the integration of the, city goals overall in terms of sustainability and DEI. And I'm wondering, I know that there have been additional programs other than kind of visually how we show more diverse folks visiting the city and enjoying the city. I think there were some other programs, initiatives in terms of having the inclusive and belonging radiate throughout the hospitality. Can you maybe talk about that a little bit more? What all you've been working on?
Yeah, definitely. So I will dive in, and you may have some other components to add. But yes, DEI and our work in the DEI space is something that we are using as we approach all aspects of our work. So when we're talking about things, for example, like the redesign of our brochure, which is not even something we talked about today here, one of the initiatives that we've taken this year is actually to have that fully translated into Spanish as well, so that we have our content, which is in a printed piece. So of course, our website you can access and then get that and translated, based on the language that you're looking for. But when you actually then have our printed pieces, we also have those components that are now translated as well. So that's one example. In addition, as we continue to work closely with our partners across the county, for example, with Visit SLOCAL, one of the initiatives that Visit SLOCAL is rolling out is a brand new customer service module, which you all will be hearing more about later this fall. But it is a frontline customer service piece that is part of their development within their destination management strategy, their Experience SLOCAL 2050 plan. And so one of the components within that, of course, so the whole customer service training module is about how to engage with visitors, and it's for frontline workers across any industry here throughout San Luis Obispo County, throughout SLOCAL. And one component of that, out of the 4 modules, is actually focused on DEI. And so how can we show our county overall, and how do we portray, what language do we use, how do we show ourselves as more welcoming and be more inclusive to visitors that are traveling in. And I don't know if you have any other.
No, I mean, I just add a tiny little bit. It's elevating and having a more consistent customer service product. A lot of businesses in the region feel like they do customer service well, but in reality, maybe there's room for improvement. And it's just to really elevate sort of everyone who's interested in participating to give the customer the very best. And the only other thing I'd add also is that, you know, our business is marketing. And a lot of the marketing is, it's customer facing. And so it's very conscious for the board and for our contractors, and obviously for Molly too, that the customers out there need to see folks that look like them. They need to see that this is a place that they could see themselves in. And we're really trying hard to, and really it's a very much the conscious level. Everything we put out needs to be that way.
Thank you.
Councilmember Marks.
Thank you. Well, I was happy to be on the San Luis Obispo City Council back in 2008 and 2009. I've always supported the T-bid, so I'm happy to see that you're an adolescent now, growing up at 14. I did have sort of two questions. One, there has been talk in the past of having a centralized vacancy center so that someone could, I mean, like when you travel in Europe, you go to something that's like the visitor center or something, and you say, I need a hotel, and of course you're a stranger, you don't know where to go. And
Our friends at the SLO Chamber help us with that. They actually call around.
I'm just curious, does that kind of thing exist now, or?
It's an active program that the chamber runs. And
Great.
they call around, they check for vacancies, especially on the busy weekends, and see who has a few rooms available. And they're sort of the clearinghouse for that, exactly
Great.
like you explain it.
Great, well, good. Well, I wasn't paying attention, you guys did it, so that's wonderful. And the other question, I was happy to see a photo of the train station on one of your brochures. I know that the train station is actually going to be upgraded and renovated through, pardon? SLOCOG.
Done, yeah.
It's done. But I think it really lacks any kind of presence in terms of the community or what's offered. I've often helped people getting off a train find the downtown from the train, like they're going, where's the downtown? You know, many trains stop in the downtown, but ours don't. So I'm just curious if you guys have any plans to upgrade the experience of being in the train station.
Yeah, so this is a great opportunity with the conversion of the work that the T-bid really focuses on to get the visitor here, and the partnership with the PCC to then be able to help enhance that visitor experience when they're in town. So great to understand and kind of hear more about maybe some of the challenges that folks have. The PCC has been diving into a full program all related to what we call our neighborhood map program, where we're creating these individual maps that represent each kind of neighborhood of our city, that then can all direct back and kind of, you can take a look and kind of deep dive. One of those maps is actually featuring the Railroad District. And so I think there's definitely some opportunities for us to make those connections and make sure that those maps are displayed through that work of the PCC in the railroads, in the railroad station.
Good, and I just want to share a quote from Louis Sinsheimer, who's the longest-serving mayor ever. And I'm paraphrasing, but I just read his biography over the weekend. And he said, San Luis Obispo is not just a city, it's a way of life. And that's way back when. So you guys are continuing a tradition. Thank you very much.
He understood the slow life too, didn't he?
Yeah. Thanks.
Wonderful, thank you. Any public comment? Okay, thank you. All right, well, are there any other additional comments before we move to a vote? Councilmember Shoresman?
I just want to say that I've had the pleasure of being the liaison to the T-bid over the last year and getting to know and work with Molly, and so appreciate you stepping back up, Clint, when Molly, we've had a lot of interviews. As you can see by the turnover rate, we've had a lot of vacancies and a lot of turnover on the T-bid, and when she told me that you were interested in stepping back up, I was like, is he really interested, or are we twisting arms here? So I'm grateful to see that you are genuinely interested in this and that you are all doing a great job. And just a comment on the photos and the marketing. I'm no marketing expert, but I just love looking at all the photos and seeing all the places that I love in this city. And I see that visual right there on the screen at least once every other week at Sunset on Terrace Hill. So it really is, exemplifies what we have here and why we were all so lucky to live here. And I will make a motion if we're ready.
Add a few more comments too. I really appreciate also in your report how you identified the 2018-19 reference, because these last couple of years have been, it's wonderful that it's increases as it should be, because COVID was such a strange time. So I guess it's kind of still is. But thank you very much for identifying that. And I also really love the hearts in beds versus heads in beds. And I did expect to see a tiara today, so I am confused by that, but
I have
okay.
it in my office.
Earlier, she had the $1 million tiara. It was quite nice. And I also love the Live the Slow Life tagline now that Councilmember Marks was mentioning. That's wonderful. And I noticed you highlighted the 1% of TOT going towards trees through EcoSlow. Just wondered if you had any updates on that, if people are volunteering, or how's that working?
Yeah, so it's 1% of the TBID revenue that's being dedicated, and it's a incredible program that the TBID board, it's something that is unprecedented, unheard of. We got a lot of questions from all across the country this year of folks saying, wait, how is your TBID doing that? How does this work? And why are trees important to the hotels, right? But being able to tell that whole story has been phenomenal this year. And we are so excited to be able to continue on down that path. For the investment that the TBID makes for last fiscal year, the 1% that was dedicated was able to purchase about 30 trees, purchase, plant, and actually maintain for a 3 to 5 year lifespan, about 30 trees here in our community. And again, this is that beautiful story of here in San Luis Obispo, how everybody works together to make something happen. So the TBID saw the need within the Climate Action Plan to achieve this new goal, said we'll start putting in the money to get this program started. Our partners at EcoSlow took on the program to say, okay, we'll be responsible for the trees. Our partners up at Cal Poly actually worked on supplying the trees, growing the trees to a place that they could actually be planted. And then our local Rotary groups were actually the folks who actually put the trees in the ground. And now we get to point them out to our visitors. One grouping of trees is actually at the base of Terrace Hill. And so our visitors can go by and see the difference that they're able to make forever on here in our community. And most importantly, also offset those carbon impacts that their visits are making here in our community.
And it's really showing industry leadership also. It's getting really noticed industry-wide. In fact, recently, the World Travel and Tourism Organization came and featured the Central Coast, and San Luis Obispo they featured for the Keys for Trees. So it's really resonating.
That's awesome. I see a docent tree walking tour in the future. And just really, I remember walking by the South Hills and seeing all the trees. That was great. So thank you very much. And I also really appreciate the DEI and sustainability themes that you've continued to stick through the TBID or Visit Slow, and I'll have to get used to saying that. And I really appreciate the customer service, because I think that is one of the ways that we can really talk about biases and hidden biases and implicit biases and things that are affecting our customer service citywide and countywide. So that's wonderful. Thank you so much. All right, so Councilmember Shoresman, I know you wanted to make a motion.
I'll move approval of the recommendation.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Christensen.
I will second. Thank you very much. Great job, as always.
Councilmember Shoresman? Yes. Mike's?
Yes.
I'm saying yes. I'm trying to get my little microphone to work. Is it working? Good. Okay, yes.
Vice Chair Christensen?
Yes.
Councilmember Marks?
Yes.
Councilmember Pease?
Yes.
Mayor Stewart?
Yes, the motion passes 5-0. Thank you so much for all of your work.
And could you just clarify, we do still need to have a public hearing then?
Yes, it'll be November 1st, is what we just agreed to on the bottom of this slide.
Okay.
Yep. Thank you. Perfect. Thank you, Molly. City Manager, did you want to wrap back around?
Sure, Madam Mayor and members of the council, I'm glad to see Ms. Jodry back. I just wanted to share just some information. I'm happy to go into more detail. I'm sorry you stepped out of the room, but I did share with the council and the public that was in the room that we do have some planned improvements for safety improvements that we've identified along with some engineers. Probably a more expansive look at broader improvements is something that we'll just need to have a conversation with the council. Those structures were not designed at the time to really accommodate additional improvements. And so we'll have to take a look longer term about what we can do. I did want to share that we will be scoping a camera project for the next financial plan. And so I would encourage those that are interested in that program to be engaged in the financial planning process. And we'll be looking at what that scope is, probably on a phased basis. We've got 3 parking structures. The next one, we'll be looking to include cameras as part of the initial build.
Great. Thank you for the update. Thank you for coming back. Okay, so we will move forward to the final business item, which is a ordinance to amend Municipal Code, Chapter 9.10, Cannabis Regulations, and the Annual Cannabis Business Program and Regulation Update.
Well, thank you, Mayor Stewart. I'm going to go ahead and kick this item off. I'm Michael Codron, your Director of Community Development, and I wanted to just take a moment to introduce the staff that'll be presenting the item tonight. In particular, Alex Fuchs, who you know is a long-term city employee working in parking, but has now come over to community development and is our cannabis business coordinator. So Alex will be leading the presentation. He's supported by Brian Lavelle. Brian Lavelle is a senior planner in community development and works with a team of talented planners that includes Alex. So we're excited to present this update for you. It's an annual update, but it's a little late this year. We're looking to get back on track with a spring presentation with the next annual update, but we have some changes to the program to propose as well as just giving you a status report. I want to highlight that also in the room, Deputy City Manager Herman, City Attorney Dietrich, City Manager Johnson, and myself, we're all part of the steering committee, the internal steering committee for the cannabis program. So I think you're well supported in the discussion tonight. We're happy to answer any questions that you might have along the way. And with that, I'll turn it over to Alex.
Thanks, Michael. Can everybody hear me okay? So good evening, council. Before you tonight are 4 recommendations related to the cannabis business program. First is to receive an update on the city's cannabis business program. The second is to introduce an ordinance amending the cannabis regulations, Chapter 9.10 of the Municipal Code, to clarify requirements for applying, obtaining, activating, renewing cannabis operator permits in the city. The third is to adopt a resolution amending the merit criteria for retail storefront operator permit applications. And the fourth, to provide direction to staff to further evaluate requests to modify specific cannabis storefront policies. Before staff gets into the cannabis business program update, just wanted to quickly review council's previous actions on the cannabis business program. In 2018, council took several big steps, including adopting multiple ordinances to establish regulations for commercial cannabis businesses and for personal cultivation, to adopt ordinance designating areas of the city where cannabis business activity may be located, now known as the cannabis business zones, to adopt an ordinance establishing taxes for cannabis business operations, and to adopt a resolution approving cannabis operator permit ranking criteria and establishing an annual application submittal timeframe. 2019, council adopted a resolution updating the cannabis operator permit ranking criteria. And then in 2020, council adopted an ordinance updating the application procedure and submittal requirements for cannabis operator permits. And then finally, in 2021, council adopted an ordinance establishing a uniform permit renewal requirements. Currently, there are 3 commercial cannabis businesses in operation in the city, 2 of which are retail storefronts, and a third is a non-storefront delivery operation. There is a 3rd retail storefront permit available due to the termination of the Natural Healing Center permit that took place last October in 2021. There is a correction that staff wanted to point out on this slide that is different from what was in the report. In the report, it stated that PureSL had lapsed on their timeline to activate their permit. That's not correct. They still have a permit to operate a cannabis business in the city, in particular, a non-retail storefront delivery business. They are pending their final approval for a building permit and have until the end of the calendar year to have city inspect their property, and then we'll have 6 months from that time frame to finalize a permit and to go into operation. So I just wanted to point that out. I did also want to note on this slide that there are 12 delivery businesses that are not located within the city, but they are licensed within the city and pay taxes to the city for deliveries that take place within city limits. The revised cannabis tax revenue budget for last fiscal year, 21-22, was $1 million, and the actual amount received was just shy of that by about $3,000. The current budget for this fiscal year is $1.4 million. So far, the city has received $154,000 between July and August combined. Using those 2 months projected for the remainder of the year, staff anticipates a total revenue collection of about $900,000 to $1 million, but that assumes no new businesses go into operation in the next 9 months, so that could change. Staff does anticipate providing an update to these revenue projections at mid-year in February. The cannabis operator permit fees received in last fiscal year were significantly higher than the revised budget of $157,000 compared to what was received of a little over $250,000. This fiscal year, so far, the city has received $123,000 in permit fees compared to the budget of about $210,000. Most of the permit fees are received in the first couple months of a new fiscal year, so that number may not change dramatically, but again, in February, staff will provide an updated budget number. So the current open application period that was established by council is July 1st through July 31st. The city is opened to accept all permit types except retail storefronts due to the pending litigation with the Natural Healing Center. There was some interest and correspondence between potential operators, but no applications were submitted this past July. If council adopts and introduces the proposed changes tonight, the city manager does have the authority to open a new application period to fill that 3rd retail storefront permit instead of waiting until next July to open for applications. If the city manager does choose to execute that authority, then of course council would be notified in advance, and the cannabis program page would be updated so that the public would be notified of the new application period as well. The proposed changes to the retail storefront merit criteria fall into 2 categories: the community benefits section and the equity and labor section. The community benefits section is proposed to be modified to clarify the number of points available for community service between the 10 to 20 hours provided per month versus the 20 or more hours provided per month. This section is also proposed to change to clarify what is meant by history of supporting local community programs, which is meant by any service provided in the past 1 year. For equity and labor, staff is proposing to eliminate points for a labor and peace agreement, since state law requires already that any cannabis business that has 20 or more employees have an active labor and peace agreement before a state permit would be issued. And then these changes would take the total amount of points available for a retail permit from 140 down to 138. Staff is also proposing amendments to 5 different sections of Chapter 9.10 of the Municipal Code. The first being the definition section, where staff is proposing to codify the terms for applicant, financial interest holder, majority, operator, owner, principals, primary principals, and social equity owner. These terms were already defined during the application and permitting process, but they were not codified within the city's municipal code. The second section of commercial cannabis operator permit, application procedures and requirements are proposed to include expanding the section to clearly state that felony convictions within 5 years of an application submittal date is grounds for disqualification, as is any misleading or false statements or omissions provided by the applicant during the application process. The proposed changes also include an extension of the timeline for an operator to activate a permit from 12 months to 24 months. Staff found that during the implementation of the current process requirements, operators struggled to meet the 12-month activation timeline, even during the COVID pandemic when timelines were extended. The proposed changes to the suspension and revocation of permits and appeals section are meant to clarify that immediate revocation of permits remains an available penalty that the city can exercise for any discoveries made following the activation of permit after demonstrating that applicant has provided false, misleading, or omitted information during the application process. Such a revocation would still be subject to the appeal process. Staff is also proposing changes to the prohibition on transfer of commercial cannabis operator permits to include a 3-year moratorium prohibiting the majority transfer of ownership after a permit is activated. Transfers that result in a reduction or elimination of social equity ownership or the percentage of social equity ownership compared to the original application would also be prohibited. The purpose is to hold the applicant to the commitments made during the application process, which impacts their score and ranking as they were received and evaluated by staff. Owners, permit holders, and financial interest holders are also prohibited from obtaining ownership of any kind under the proposed amendments in more than one storefront operated within the city. Any transfers that violates this section would void or terminate the business's operating permit. And lastly, there's a minor change to the inspections and enforcement section, which allows the city to enforce the provisions of the cannabis regulations if a permittee or applicant was found in violation. Staff has received correspondence from the existing retail storefront operators requesting 3 policy changes, and staff is seeking input and direction from council tonight on those items, on whether they would like to entertain them and have staff review and evaluate the impacts of them, and then possibly return with any recommendations. The first one is to extend the storefront operating hours. Currently, retail storefronts are allowed to operate between 9 a.m. and 8 p.m. The recommendation is to begin 2 hours earlier at 7 a.m. and then to go 1 hour later until 9 p.m. This is in line with other municipal operations within our county, but is still more restrictive than what the state of California allows, which is operations between 6 a.m. and 10 p.m. for retail storefronts and delivery. The second request is to allow medical cannabis users aged 18 to 20 to access retail storefronts. Currently, those medical cannabis card holders can only receive cannabis products via deliveries. The state also allows this to occur, and so any change to this policy would align with state policy. And lastly, operators are requesting to allow storefronts to deliver within the city. Currently, retail storefront operators are prohibited from doing so because it's prohibited to operate a retail storefront and a delivery from the same location. Staff has prepared several alternative recommendations, one being to, of course, move to not accept any staff's recommendations. And then the other alternative is to modify one or both of the recommendations to either update the merit criteria and or amend the cannabis regulations contained within the municipal code. And so again, for you tonight are 4 recommendations for your consideration. This concludes the presentation, and staff is available to answer any questions from council or the public.
Thank you. I can't even imagine how much detail this is to go through with the regulations, so thank you very much. Can you tell me why the police department did not look at the safety aspect of change of hours before doing the presentation versus having it after, if we decided to entertain the operational hour extension?
No, these requests are still at the very early stages of evaluation, investigation, and really staff can't make any changes, does not have the authority to do so without council action. And so staff wanted to first come and present this input that we've received on our process and to get council an opportunity to weigh in on whether this is something that they would like us as staff to pursue or not before engaging safety personnel in the discussion further.
Madam Mayor, I'd just hop in. I think, that, some of these issues, the council's getting feedback before, and so before we entertained and launched a work effort, we wanted to see was there an appetite from the council? And then we can come back and give our professional recommendation of evaluating the hours. And so if there's any parameters, if the council's interested in pursuing some of these policy changes that you want us to take a look at and report back on, and I would say just that also require advisory body review. So since some of these are embodied in our land use, in our municipal code, we'll need to bring them to the planning commission or through another process.
Thank you. Councilmember Marks?
Thank you. Yeah, I had a question on the prohibition of the transfer of the commercial cannabis operator permits. So your staff is proposing a 3-year moratorium prohibiting majority transfer of ownership after a permit is activated. What if an owner dies? There has to be a transfer of ownership if somebody dies, right? I have a background in estate planning. So what is there no exception to this? Or what if someone has a nervous breakdown and gets institutionalized in a mental hospital or something? Or what if somebody, there are things happen in people's lives that make them do things like sell businesses, buy and sell and all that, So this, I don't understand why there are no exceptions or some kind of discretion someplace in this prohibition.
The proposed language was staff's attempt to sort of limit any applicant from immediately applying and then going and changing and transferring the ownership and essentially circumnavigating the application and evaluation and merit criteria process. But there is an understanding that life events do happen. And so there's always an opportunity now to modify that language and maybe provide some flexibility in there as opposed to just strictly prohibiting it.
No, I agree with the purpose. I'm just, from a practical business point of view, don't understand how that could work.
City Attorney, I know I asked the same question of you yesterday.
Madam Mayor and Councilmember Marks, obviously there are court processes that would adjudicate an estate transfer, and the city those would prevail over city if there's a dead owner. We're going to defer to the court process, but also the council always retains the discretion to hear specialized requests that address circumstances that would arise that aren't contemplated.
So it's understood that there would still be some discretion if a very unusual situation emerged.
Correct. The council's always going to have the discretion to make exceptions to its own adopted rules.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Shoresman.
Yeah, a couple of questions. One's a pretty basic question. I think you showed a slide early on with the entities who had sought permits or who already had permits or were somewhere through the process. And you mentioned that there was an error in the staff report about the status of Pure SL. I just wondered if you could clarify that again, because I did see the note in the staff report, but I'm not clear what the error was still.
In the staff report, it says that PRSL has lapsed on our timeline to activate the permit. But because certain emergency declarations took place during COVID, there's an opportunity to extend that timeline. And they are still currently going through the building permit review process. So there's an opportunity to finalize that and then to activate the permit within about the next 6 months.
Okay, and so they have a retail storefront permit, or what type of permit do they have?
It's non-retail delivery.
Okay. And then another question, I guess, about the 3-year moratorium. Why 3 years, and would that be 3 years from when they opened or 3 years from when they got their permit? Sorry to kind of delve into the details, but the 3-year part seems a little bit, why not 1, why not 5? It just seems a little bit arbitrary.
It is.
Oh,
And the
okay.
and the council could certainly make changes to that if that doesn't seem like the right place to land.
Okay.
The reasoning behind it was, time for the operational model to have some chance to establish, for those social equity partners to have the opportunity to progress and, see the benefits of the investment and for there to be some stability. I would suggest that 1 year, given how quickly these timeframes move in this business and the number of variables and moving parts we're dealing with, would be, I think, difficult to manage and not yield that much benefit in terms of understanding how the applicant team that prevailed in the process is going to operate in the city.
Thank you for that. I think I understood the intent, but just wasn't sure where the number came from. And about the hours, the consideration of the hours and whether or not we should extend them. I'm just curious, is there any, since I wasn't here for the history on this, why are the hours the way they are now, considering that they could have been longer? Is there something that interacts with our other ordinances or other businesses, or how did we get where we are?
Another great question, council.
I think, Michael, you want to come up and address that? I mean, I think this has been discussed a few different times. I think every time we've come forward, we've talked about hours, but we can talk about how we landed on these.
It's really a result of the process. So we went through in the development of the initial ordinance and the initial program. It took us a long time. There was a lot of outreach. There was a lot of engagement. The community was very involved, and in some of those cases, we didn't know exactly what the rest of the community would do in terms of the region. And basically, when we made a presentation and heard on our program and heard from operators in terms of what their experience has been, what we saw was that we are at a differential from other communities in the region. But there isn't a specific reason other than it was the result of a process, and that process involves compromise. It involves development of agreements over time. So without the knowledge of exactly how every other community would be regulating at that particular time.
And Madam Mayor, if I could add to that, I think there was also some feedback from public safety in terms of trying to limit the interplay between SLO's otherwise more robust than our surrounding community nightlife and potential responses to cannabis businesses by public safety first responders.
Thank you.
Thank you for that clarification. Just wanted to make sure there wasn't structurally something in an ordinance or something like that. Okay, I think that's all my questions for now.
Thank you, Councilmember Pease.
Thank you so much. A couple questions. One for the 3 requested considerations there. There was also a request that we had some correspondence about the 2% equity and having some flexibility there. Is that already being addressed in the changes, or why isn't that item number 4?
No, the item had already gone through review and had been published, so there wasn't really an opportunity to do a full evaluation of that, but there is an opportunity now to modify it since the ordinance is just being introduced tonight and not adopted if council wants to make any modifications to the language for the social equity component.
But perhaps, Michael, if you could explain the why.
Sure, Alex, if you could advance to that slide, we actually have some draft languages. This was a result of input from one of our operators, and you'll hear with public testimony, you'll hear some background and information in terms of why this is being proposed. But essentially, the proposed language in the ordinance that was published with the agenda report limited the ability to reduce or eliminate the total number of social equity owners and required that the percentages that were proposed in the application remain identical to what was proposed in the application package. And what we've come over the past few weeks with the correspondence to understand a little bit better is that 2%, which is our minimum share of ownership to be defined as an equity owner, is pretty valuable. Especially once a business has been in operation for some period of time. So initially an applicant may come forward and make an application and they may have some higher percentages within their proposal, but that's at the very beginning of the business. And over time, the business is successful, those percentages, that'll become more valuable. And so as businesses change over time and choose to grow and choose to modify, we are recommending some modified language that would still require the same number of equity owners, but would allow the percentage to be at least the minimum of 2%, so the percentages could go lower. And it's just in recognition of how businesses grow and change, of not wanting to have unintended consequences, potentially, of restricting a business from its ability to grow and grow not just in our region, but even beyond that. And for us to be able to incubate a business that is able to grow is something that I think is a value that we hold, and wouldn't want this to restrict that unknowingly or without consideration. So we've taken that into consideration, proposed some language for your consideration, and happy to answer more questions about that.
Thank you for that. Thanks for the advance review and details. So is this language that would be adopted tonight?
This is available to adopt tonight,
Okay.
or it could be modified further if the council would.
Okay, and so the proposed language and the alternative language, I'm just trying to make sure the proposed language is what is currently in the staff report, and the alternative language is also staff, but in response to the concern from the business community.
And Michael, we may want to just, if this language gets advanced by the council, just probably offer some friendly amendments to it, just to make sure that after 3 years, that the requirement doesn't go away for the equity.
That's certainly the intent. Yeah, thanks.
Great, thank you. Thanks. Let's see, I had another question about, there's a couple of sections here, and this is just kind of in the reading and evaluating, so this would be a potential consideration as it goes through Planning Commission, et cetera, which is about there's a financial investment section, and there's, different checklists for each one. So under manufacturing, for example, there's an applicant commits to develop raw land that has been zoned for commercial use for a commercial cannabis facility. And I think, historically, cities are looking for folks to come in and develop, but at this point, considering the state of our existing commercial property, that utilization of an existing property would actually even be potentially more desirable. So I'm wondering, and it will be, a discussion with colleagues, but just before we have that conversation, is there, would it be striking it all together, or is there some other background for that requirement that we should be aware of?
For clarity purposes, may I bring up the merit criteria so people can see the section that you're talking about? Because I don't think it's part of the proposed merit criteria update since the.
Correct, it's just a regular merit criteria, 3.0, so on the staff agenda report, it's page 121. Exhibit A is probably, it's pretty early on in the. Well, it depends on, the hard part is that they're not consistent.
Depends on what permit type, correct? Because it depends on the permit
Right,
type,
so,
yeah.
but correct, so in that manufacturing, if you then go to 3, yeah.
There we go, so this one.
So financial capacity, and then 3.2 is developing raw land. And then there's kind of a while we're there, there's, although I think I'm okay with it, I was questioning also the parking requirement. And I feel like it's like a 0 to, a 1 to 5, either we meet the parking that's required by zoning or we don't. So I'm not sure that criteria is helpful, but I think in particular the 3.2, we might want to nix or ask the planning commission and staff to reevaluate.
Well, Madam Mayor, I think this is open for amendment tonight. I think you could make these changes, but I think you're asking questions. So I think if we're in the question phase,
Yeah,
we
I'm just in the
can
question
raise
phase.
these and staff can offer some suggestions. But it's helpful to kind of signpost these so that we can be prepared to say, here's how the policy changes you might to affect what you're looking for.
Right, and, and frankly, this is, it's not competitive for this particular, manufacturing, right? It's, and the wording is really different for the retail one that is competitive, that's more based on degraded property type of development, so that maybe still works. All right, I think those are my questions, thanks.
All right, thank you. Now we move on to public comment. City Clerk?
Quinn Brady, Megan Sousa, and Tyler Saldo.
All right, good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Quinn Brady, here tonight with Megan's Organic Market. As you'll hear, our team has a few areas of input regarding the proposed changes to the ordinance. Overall, we are so happy to see further systems put in place tonight for processes to be more efficient for current and future operators. Before we dive into that, I get the fun part and want to take just a moment to share a few of our successes from the program and our operations since its inception. First, I want to sincerely thank the council and city staff, Alex, Brian, and Michael, for being great partners in bringing cannabis dispensaries to town in a complex climate. We know this has been a time of change and adaptation, learning and growth for cities and operators alike across the state working within this rapidly growing industry. It has been no small feat, and we are grateful for your thoughtful and diligent work. We have seen many successes in the last 2 years, more than 2 years now, as a retail dispensary, at the top of which has been having the opportunity to meaningfully serve our customers and community. I want to share just a sampling of these successes over the last 2 years. Megan's has drawn a diverse customer base, building trust with our guests through a warm and approachable atmosphere, exceptional customer service, and a high level of transparency. We have built deep community engagement, serving over 900 hours of community service with local organizations, including cooking and serving monthly meals at Prado, planting and maintaining a community orchard at City Farm Slow, and hosting cleanups to remove garbage from our highways and local waterways. We're also now considering getting involved with the Beaver Brigade, because how can you not? Megan's has created dozens of well-paying job opportunities that draw employees from around the county. And to date, we're averaging more than 15,000 transactions a month. We have completed hundreds of thousands of transactions in the last 2 years, drawing customers from around the country and tourists passing through. We have generated over $1.5 million in tax revenue between the 6% cannabis business tax and the city's portion of sales tax since the beginning of 2021. Megan's has taken safety and education seriously, developing an emerging partnership with local organizations on the development of educational materials to ensure we do everything we can to keep cannabis out of the hands of youth and those who shouldn't be using it, which is a project I am really excited about. Megan's has built a strong collaborative relationship with neighboring businesses in the South Hike area, which is also really exciting. We're about to launch an effort to promote the walkability and bikeability between our businesses, encouraging community members to venture past the edge of downtown and to patron those businesses. And finally, as I hope you know, we have a stellar compliance record, audited many times by the city and HDL, consistently being found fully compliant at the highest standards. We are grateful to city staff for holding us at those high standards, which has given our store the opportunity to grow and shine. So I just want to thank you for your time and your leadership, and I hope you will keep these successes in mind as you chart our future course. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, good evening, Mayor, City Council members, and staff. I'm Megan Souza, and I'm an owner and the CEO of Megan's Organic Market Cannabis Dispensary. And first off, I want to thank all of you for your work that you do in supporting a prosperous city for the businesses and for the residents of our community. We are really proud to be a part of the SLO community and to be pioneers in the local cannabis industry. I'm joined here tonight with almost all of the owners of Megan's Organic Market, Tara, Allison, Marion, and Tyler, who you'll hear from next. And I want to say that we really appreciate all of your, you folks' openness to hearing our input on the proposed changes to the city cannabis ordinance, which have the potential to significantly impact our business operations. So our team has evaluated the proposed changes, and we have a couple recommendations for modification, which we believe serve the city's objectives while also supporting cannabis businesses' ability to evolve and grow. We have had the opportunity to meet with staff a couple times over the last few months, and we've talked through these proposed changes, and we really appreciate staff's thoughtful consideration. And with that said, I would like to recommend that the council consider a modification to the proposed language for section 9.10.120E, the prohibition against social equity ownership reductions. And my proposal is in alignment with the alternative language that staff presented a few minutes ago. So the proposed language, not the alternative language, but the proposed language regarding restricting reductions in social equity ownership percentage from the amount stated in the original application will prove to be impractical and will hinder, we fear, will hinder our ordinary and necessary business operations. For example, if a company were to raise funds to support business growth, dilution of all existing members would be necessary. Less restrictive language would allow businesses to flourish, which would in turn further elevate social equity owners like myself, which is the intention of the social equity provision. So we propose changing the language concerning percentage social equity reduction to instead require operations to maintain the minimum threshold of social equity ownership of 2%.
Thank you. Next.
After Tyler, it's Jim D'Antona, and that's our last speaker.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Tyler Saldo, Mayor and council members, thank you. As an owner of Megan's Organic Market, SLO, my fellow owners, including my mom, Marion, and I are grateful for your leadership and thoughts and staff's thoughtful work to continue to improve the cannabis business program. We have 3 proposed amendments that have been seen on the screen to the ordinance that we have shared with staff over the last year, and we hope to see them brought to life. Our recommendations are in step with the current direction of the state. While these are good for business, we believe they're also good for the city as well. We're going to raise taxes, okay? The first proposed amendment is to extend allowable operating hours for cannabis retail storefronts within the city of SLO. We make this request in light of challenging economic trends, including dropping cannabis wholesale prices, general inflation, and decreased consumer spending, all of which are leading to lower city tax revenue generated by Megan's Organic Market. This can be mitigated by allowing the operating hours to increase by 2 hours in the morning and 1 hour in the evening. So as the screen showed earlier, it would be 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. This is within the requirements of the Department of Cannabis Control, which allows operations from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. So we're not utilizing that whole time frame, we're just expanding it a little. Adding these additional hours is expected to generate nearly $250,000 increase in taxes. $250,000 increase in taxes. I'll say that again because it's a lot. We can use it for some of the other stuff that was brought up today, like arts and safety, that sort of thing. We believe this simple change can be implemented without further delay, and we respectfully request the council direct city staff to bring this back for implementation. Second, we'd like to see an allowance for storefronts to also be able to deliver. Currently, per state regulations, delivery is permitted for the storefronts and is supported by other areas of the county. Allowing licensed dispensaries in SLO to offer delivery would increase business for SLO stores and in turn generate more tax revenue. And the third one we have is to see the city of SLO consider expanding the ordinance to allow storefronts to serve medical cannabis patients 18 years and older. State law allows for retail storefronts to serve 18 years and older, and these 18 to 20-year-old medical patients are allowed to receive delivery sales within the city of SLO and are allowed access to other storefront retailers in the county, not in the city. The current prohibition against medical patients entering a storefront seems arbitrary when considering that these deliveries to these same individuals are made within the city, but they can't go to the storefront. For all the above reasons, we respectfully request that you consider our recommendations regarding these proposed changes. Please feel free to reach out with any questions. We appreciate your consideration and we'll be grateful for your support. Thanks.
Thank you.
Hello, Madam Mayor and council members. I'm Jim D'Antona speaking to you on behalf of the SLO Chamber. Since 2016, our chamber has appreciated the city's work to balance the complex dynamics of the newly legal cannabis industry and have supported your measured approach by the city to mitigate unforeseen consequences. Our advocacy has focused on regulations that consider safety and welfare of citizens, the character of our community, and compliance with the state and federal law that would allow growth and competition within the emerging adult use cannabis industry. As you've heard from the operators already, there are some additional modifications that didn't make it into the staff report that the Chamber Board has asked us to convey and support the council amending tonight. Amend the allowed hours of operation that would be standard for almost any other legal business operating in our community. Allow retail businesses to deliver their products to the customer similar to a restaurant delivery service. And allow these businesses to serve age 18 plus with medical cards in the store because these patients are getting the product through delivery without any advice or assistance. As we have observed in other communities, these operational shifts do not impact community health, but do allow for better access to licensed, approved businesses and help limit the attractiveness of the black market delivery operators. We appreciate that staff wants to do more outreach, but as I just mentioned, our municipal neighbors already do this, and any extended delays only extend the black market option. Additionally, to support the success of local businesses in the future, we ask that you amend that element regarding the social equity ownership related to the proposed ownership changes. Back in 2016, we supported that initial design of the social equity element of the cannabis program to ensure that there was room in this industry for many types of community members, not just wealthy out-of-town interests. And to preserve the spirit of the program, respond to the industry shifts, and allow social equity owners to get the most out of their staking companies, we're asking you to adopt the alternative language presented today. Allowing businesses to invest in their own growth while maintaining at least a 2% social equity ownership, the city requirement, will maximize the benefit to social equity owners, allow local businesses to thrive and grow, and bring new social equity partners into the fold. In this industry's infancy, the city created rules that would ensure it did not become a nuisance in our community. Now that we've had several years to see how this industry has taken shape, it's appropriate to make additional changes to ensure the good operators in our community continue to succeed and push the black market operations out of town. Thank you.
Thank you so much. No other commenters?
No.
Okay, thank you so much. All right, deliberation. Who would like to go first? Councilmember Shorsman. Okay, Vice Mayor Christensen.
I'll go first. Great work. Yes, let's go. No, seriously, I really appreciated the stakeholder input. And it's been, this has been an evolution, as has been pointed out by staff as well as our stakeholders, public. So it's fun to see things kind of evolve and get more serious and more real and talk about expanding businesses. That's great. And we certainly have appreciated the tax revenue. I'm in support of the staff recommendations, and I'm in support of the alternative language with the clarification of the continuing requirement for social equity ownership even beyond the 3 years. But that 2% floor sounds reasonable to me, and I understand why that alternative language was asked for, and I think it makes sense. And it's exciting to have businesses grow to that point where those kinds of considerations need to be incorporated in our law. So that's that. In terms of the 3 things that have been requested by our public, extending the hours, to me, that's a no-brainer. I think if we're having problems, I know we haven't heard from our public safety people, but believe me, I bet we would have heard about it if we were having any problems with hours. So I know that is a change to our zoning regulations, so we can't just make it happen tonight. It has to go through a process, which means it has to go through the Planning Commission and come back to council, but I support that. I also support the 18 to 20 medical cannabis. That's also a zoning regulation change and probably would require a little bit more work in terms of public outreach. I know that IDs get checked and people, you're not going to be letting kids in that shouldn't be there anyway, but I know that that will need to go through some vetting. And then the storefronts delivery, 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. If a storefront's not selling it, a delivery service is, but I believe in flexibility and in competition, so it seems like a good idea to at least evaluate it and see if there's any unforeseen problems, but I'm certainly willing to direct staff that they pursue these three additional changes, and then we can futz around with some of the application language if you want, but I guarantee you it's probably not worth the time, but whatever. So anyway, this is really well done staff report and very well done input, and I appreciate it very much.
Thank you, Councilmember Shorsman.
Thank you. I echo Vice Mayor Christensen. It's a really well put together report and very detailed, and seems like it covers all the questions. I do have a question for members of the business community from, I guess from Megan in particular, since it was her letter where she proposed some additional language. I just wanted to know if the alternative language that's been proposed by staff sort of meets the needs instead of what you had proposed in your letter.
Yes, it does, perfectly.
Okay. I thought it was going the right direction, but I just kind of wanted to make sure. Also wanted to know about the logistics of that 18 to 20 age group and how that works in order to make sure that people are legitimate, you know, they have real prescriptions. Do you have a process? I would assume that would be an altered process from what you would normally do with your usual patrons now.
Yeah, I would love to address that. So before Prop 64, I had Prop 215 medical cannabis delivery service that served the whole county. So we have lots of experience and established processes for validating patients' doctors' recommendations. So the way it works is a patient who has a doctor's recommendation to use cannabis medically shows their ID along with the doctor's recommendation, and then we verify it through an online database to make sure that it's valid and current, that it's not expired. And I will just add that, or emphasize that neighboring cities of Morro Bay and Grover Beach do allow 18-plus medical users to visit their dispensaries.
Thank you for that. Appreciate it. And I appreciate Councilmember Pease bringing up some of the language in the checklist, the scoring sheets, because I noticed a couple little discrepancies too. I don't know if we want to discuss those or if we want to just bring them up with staff.
We would want to get
Discuss
direction
them.
tonight, so if you move through the main recommendations, if there's any amendments to the scoring sheets, we'd love to get that feedback tonight.
Okay,
We
so,
want to prepare that for when we decide to open up the application period.
okay, so just for reference, so you guys can look it up, I noticed the same one that Councilmember Pease did on page 121. I also noticed some discrepancies between page 122 and 126. At the bottom of the page, the one on 121 that she referenced didn't quite make sense to me, that there was two lines. Let me go back to it. There's, you know, basically there's one item that's, the commits to develop raw land, and then right below it, the one that says commits to major improvements. And those seem like you would either do one or the other. You wouldn't get points for both. So either you're committing raw land that's been zoned for commercial use and you'd get 1 to 10 points for that. Would you possibly get scored some points in both of those categories?
Well,
That just was
I
confusing to me.
think, you know, they're independent from each other. The idea is, one, you're doing a redevelopment of a property, so you've got an existing building, you're doing a major redevelopment, improvement, facade improvements, and the other one is for raw land, zoned for commercial facilities, so they're intended. And at the time, and Michael, please correct me if I'm wrong, I think the idea was to Councilmember Pease's point that we were looking for, we had some vacant parcels. We don't necessarily have that today. So if council's inclined to tinker with those, you might want to flop the points, possible points available, and so it's 1 to 5 for raw land and 1 to 10 for major improvements. And that might be a way if you want to weight those differently. It's just a suggestion.
And the total possible points wouldn't be 30, right? You couldn't get 10 in both those categories, or 10 in one category and 5 in the other, could you?
1 to 5 and the 3.2 and 1 to 10 and the 3.3.
Correct. It's one or the other.
Okay. And then the discrepancy on 126, 122 and 126 is around 1.3B, where it says that applicant can demonstrate a history of supporting local community programs for the past 1 year. And then there's another one on the other page, 122. I guess I'm going backwards. Where it says 1 to 2 years. So I would think we would want to be consistent.
We just changed it to 1 year. That's what they talked about in the history.
Okay, so that's going to be changed across the board in all of them?
We'll go ahead and align those
Okay.
across the board. And
Okay.
then
Sorry to get into the weeds, but that's
Yeah.
all.
Alex and Brian, rather than leave this point, the numbers don't add up to 30 on that one page. So do you have a suggestion for the council about how?
I believe the intent is what you had indicated, is that it's up to a total of 25 points on here. You get either for raw development or for major improvements, but you can't get both, the total 30, so, yeah.
That's what I was talking about, yeah.
Yeah, and we can clarify that absolutely, that it's an either or.
Thank you. Councilmember Pease.
Thank you so much, and I'm also supportive of the changes tonight and the 3 items. So extending hours, yes, that makes sense. 18 to 20, I'm glad to have that evaluated for that, for the point of being able to have a person, have a retail environment to understand options better. And then the question, I'm supportive of the folks who have storefronts to be able to submit an application, to be able to deliver. In theory, I guess the only part that I want to make sure that is being evaluated is the potential bait and switch in terms of somebody else has gone through the process of applying for a delivery permit with the understanding of here are the rules for the, who else can apply for the permit. So I just want to make sure, I also support competition, but wonder if maybe that gets phased in. I feel like in a sense of fairness, we need to check in if we're changing the playing field mid-flight is what I'm concerned about.
Are you worried about a delivery person applying and then not realizing that a storefront could be delivering?
Well, I'm worried that a delivery person has already gone through the investment of creating a delivery business in the city, and with the understanding that the rules are that the retail folks won't also be doing delivery.
But
So it
since
just
there's-
seems like a,
Since delivery permits aren't really limited, they could be lots of delivery services, so that doesn't really.
I tend to agree. I think in general I would be supportive, but that would be the one piece that I'm hesitant about. I want to make sure we don't inadvertently change the rules mid-flight. And then I think the development of raw land, I don't know, I almost circle back to Councilmember Christensen's point of like, maybe we just don't mess with this, or maybe we look at it at a different round in terms of the macro view of really or ask, the planning commission, like, while you're looking at those other 3 things, can you spend a little bit of time thinking about those financial investment pieces, and how does that align with carbon reduction, which is really what I would be more interested in at this point than the economic development piece of getting commercial land. I'd rather encourage people to utilize existing facilities. So I don't know that I'm comfy in the moment to be able to make those changes to the checklist. I'm open if we want to have that conversation or staff feels like they can weigh in, but it's impactful. I recognize that. So, so I'm a little bit on the fence about taking that on or not.
Thank you, Councilmember Marks.
Thank you. Well, I am in basic agreement with what Vice Mayor Christensen was saying. Support the staff recommendations, support the alternate language. Expanding the hours, that makes sense to me. With the 18-year-olds, I have to say, as the grandmother of 4 teenage boys, it sort of gives me pause, but hearing that there is a process and that there's vetting, I think that would be all right. I think, I don't know what the mechanics would be, but I think that storefront operations should be able to deliver. And I think that it's likely that the there would be more communication in terms of the product itself with the customer, so they have a better sense of what they're actually getting. As to 3.2, I think it's really a bad idea to grow marijuana on land that is zoned for commercial use. I think it's just a bad idea. I don't know what it's doing in there anyway. Growing marijuana it's a plant, so it's an agricultural use. And I know from experience elsewhere that when people have used land to grow marijuana, there's always a chance of people wanting to slip in there and take some for themselves. And so you have to have kind of guarding going on to make sure that it's all being done in a safe and legal manner and that people aren't stealing it. I just don't understand where that came from. And, you know, we do have an ag zone in the city, and right now there's just one parcel, or there's two. There's one on San Luis Ranch and one on a city farm that are zoned agriculture. But I think we should just ace that out. I don't know what that would do to the point system.
I think that's in manufacturing, distribution, non-storefront retail evaluation criteria, so maybe somebody is doing a manufacturing building is
To
more.
develop raw land, applicant commits to develop raw land that has been zoned for commercial use for a commercial cannabis. Oh, you're talking about processing rather than growing it, is that correct?
Correct, yes, I think that was where that.
If I could
Okay.
just-
Well, I still think it's a bad idea, I don't know.
Mr. Fuchs,
Can I
you
get
wanna-
some more
do you wanna add
clarification on
clarification?
that?
Yeah, if I could just clarify
I mean,
the financial.
I'm thinking like what, like we have a lot of land that's zoned commercial.
Yes. No, it is limited to the cannabis business overlay zones, but the financial investment merit criteria does span multiple permits, and that's something that we can definitely clarify as is. I think getting into the evaluation of the development of raw land versus infill is probably more complex and something that we can do tonight, but if it's a simple swap of 1 to 5 points versus 1 to 10 points, that's completely doable for council's action tonight. But it sounds like there may need to be a revisit on some of these and some more thoughtful approach to the criteria for each individual permit type.
Yeah, I just think it really would need a lot of work to make sure we know exactly what we're talking about here.
So if I could suggest to the council, maybe we segment the discussion, we move through the staff recommendations, and then if there's an appetite, we can move through some of the scoring. If council's interested, we can bring the scoring to the planning commission. With all due respect to the planning commission, I think that this is really policy, more fit for the council. And so if there's tweaks, we can make some tweaks, or if you want a wholesale look at it, we can come back in March. March of 2023 is when we're planning on coming back with the direction that you gave us tonight with respect to the ordinance changes. So we're at a kind of a crossroads point, so maybe in terms of process, Madam Mayor, I just suggest that we maybe get rid of the items that are before you, and then we can then tackle the issue of the application.
Thank you. I think that's a fine suggestion. Let's continue going through the recommendations, and then we can come back to the raw
Okay.
discussion.
Yeah.
We can come back to it today or later. As far as my thoughts on this, I appreciate the hours in two aspects. One, I hear, other areas have this already right here in our county. But at the same time, without that knowledge from PD of knowing how that's gone well or not gone well in other cities in our community, or what it's looking like past our current hours here, I just feel like that's a major factor that we should be talking about before making this decision. And at the same time, I also appreciate that people can just drive out of here and go to another city, but that's what the same conversation we had about flavored tobacco here before, which was other cities could do that, but in our city, we didn't want that. So I think we have to kind of be careful of just because other cities do it, I'll get to you in just a second. Thank you.
I think you're misunderstanding what we've been saying.
No, I don't have any input from the PD in our community
We're
or
saying
other
bring it back,
areas.
study it and bring it back, and part of studying it would be talking to the
Oh,
PD.
okay.
Yeah, we're
I thought
not
you were saying yes to the hours.
No, I'm saying yes to
Oh, okay.
getting, to bringing it forward in March or whenever it is, yeah.
Okay,
We're not
when you're-
doing- We
when
can't
you're
do any
done.
of this stuff because it has to go through its zoning
Okay.
change, so. Yeah, no, study it and do your staff stuff and outreach and everything and bring it back. Yeah,
Yeah, that's
yeah,
what
we're
I'm
directing
saying,
staff to
though.
explore it, not to do it.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, though, is that I just want to make sure I have really clear understanding of the public safety responses to that, not just in what we would picture in our city, but the other cities as well. So, then, as far as the delivery, the to-go was a perfect example. To me, I think, I appreciate where we first started, which was before my time of trying to stop monopolies, but I think instead it just hurts our buy local concept. And when we're trying to say buy local, and then we say, but just kidding, not in delivery, it just seems odd. So I do think we should allow our storefronts to deliver. The 18 to 21 policy, I hear you, Councilmember Marks, it is hard. I mean, an 18-year-old is not allowed in a place of alcohol if it doesn't have food. And medical marijuana is something, there's no medical alcohol. So, there's a difference in this situation. So I'd be open to that. As far as the 2%, I also agree, Councilmember Pease, with, I don't want to see the bait and switch, but I also appreciate the growth aspect of businesses and what that looks like, because that was my initial thought and questions yesterday with the city attorney and city manager was, why are we stopping growth, and why would we not want our businesses to be successful? So there was a balance there that seemed odd. And hold on one second. Oh, and then I appreciate what we are just hearing from our local business, and I just want to make sure when we're making this policy, we're not making it for just a current business, we're making it for all businesses that happen in the future, so just to make sure we're thinking about actually putting in what our current business does for the 18 to 21 grouping, and make sure that we are putting that into our policies so we're keeping people safe as best as possible. So those were my initial inputs. Councilmember Shoresman?
Yeah, just one last thing to revisit. Echo, I think I'm in agreement with the alternative language, looking at amending the hours, allowing retail to deliver. I'm comfortable with the process that the retailers have in place for verifying the 18 to 20-year-old age group. The one last little bit that I just want to make sure we're all on the same page is the 3-year moratorium, since that was a number that staff threw out their best recommendation. I don't know that I have a strong opinion. 1 year does seem like not enough time. I don't know if 3 years feels like too much, but I guess I'm agreeable to 2 or 3, something like that. I don't know what the other council members feel.
And I think something to consider, to tag on the city attorney's comments is that, we have seen that sometimes it takes up to 2 years to get a retail up and running. So then to change, the partners is so, that's our recommendation, but it's a pure policy decision for the council.
Well, if I read the alternative language correctly, it was it 3 years after the date that the permit, or 3 years after?
We've got a
Activation.
little bit of clarified
Oh.
language, because I
Yeah.
think we had some imprecision in that first draft. So the new language will read 3 years from activation of the operator permit.
And activation, the definition of that is store opening?
Yes.
Okay.
All permitted and open and operating.
I just want to clarify, we're talking about 2 different sections right now. So there's a prior section, I'm forgetting the letter right now, I don't have it in front of me, but Brian or Alex, this is the question that Councilmember Shoresman was asking was just about in relation to the new prohibition of ownership change. The 3-year moratorium. And so the question is 3 years the right number? And also we want to clarify that is 3 years from activation of the permit, which means activation is the first day the store has their certificate of occupancy, they're open and they're doing business. So 3 years from that point is what our recommendation is.
Is that the one on page 141?
I think so, but I'm going to rely on Alex for that.
It is page 153, and then it is, I'm just going off of the exhibit to the ordinance because it has clearly the underlying language, which is the new language that's being proposed tonight. So it's section 3 of 9.10, 120.
D and E. Okay, thank you.
So that's the first question, and then we have some revised language up here for E.
I think I'm good with 3 years. I mean, it's on the edge of a long time, considering it might take a while to open it, but if there's, I mean, really extenuating circumstances, we can always, evaluate, but if they, again, consistency.
Yeah, I'm comfortable with 3 as well.
Okay, I am as well.
Okay, Councilmember Marks?
Yes, I'm comfortable with the 3-year, with the added language there. And if that turns out to be unworkable, we can always revisit it later, but I think it's a good place to start.
I agree. Okay, so with all of the changes, is that guidance what you were looking for? Do you need any other guidance? Or shall we move forward with a motion? No, okay. Councilmember Pease.
I'd like to go ahead and move the staff recommendations, including the changes incorporated here. This doesn't include any changes to the evaluation criteria that we've been talking about, other than if there's a math error. Yeah, I think that's the motion, right?
I think so.
Did I miss anything?
Well, part of the motion, staff recommendation motion is to direct staff to further evaluate and return, and I think we do have 3 things we want them to further
Correct, so the 3
evaluate.
things that, sorry, I don't have the motion in front of me. But yes, the changes incorporated, and then please come back and with the extended hours, the 18, 19, 20-year-old for access, and considering storefront businesses to also be able to deliver.
I'll second.
Thank you. And do you want to talk? Okay, never mind. Councilmember Shorzan, did you have a question before?
No.
No, okay.
Jesus, right.
All right, great. City Clerk, can we have roll call?
Councilmember Pease,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Christensen,
Yes.
Councilmember Marks,
Yes.
Councilmember Shorsman,
Yes.
Mayor Stewart.
Yes, the motion passes 5-0. Do we want to have any other conversation around the raw land and going back to Planning Commission, or are we good on that conversation?
I think, depending on the council's appetite, the council's essentially authorized the city manager to determine the application period. And, we're going to have to work through that as a team in terms of the timing as it relates to other issues that are in our city. And if the council's interested in making sure we have the right scoring criteria, then I would encourage council to seize the opportunity if there's minor tweaks. If you want to have a wholesale discussion on this, then I think then I would suggest that we trail this and come back at a future meeting.
So, sorry.
That's okay, Councilmember Marks.
Yeah, so I don't understand why, if what we're talking about is essentially a manufacturing kind of facility, why are we talking about only raw land? What if somebody owned an industrial park and they wanted to donate that?
I don't know that anyone's donating it, but
I mean, as opposed to, or get points, as opposed to raw land, I don't know.
I think it was mentioned that it's sort of an economic development value, that there are areas within cannabis business zones where vacant land exists.
Uh-huh.
And as an incentives to promote development of new state-of-the-art facilities. We initially, in the development of the application and the scoring, wanted to reward that level of investment through more points on the application.
Right. Well, I'm just thinking of like in Grover Beach, they have one of those zones, but it's all like an industrial park. So I don't know.
Correct.
I don't know if it's worth coming back to us, but I just would like to have a memo, at least from staff, explaining it a little further. Because when I read raw land, I thought they were talking about planting marijuana. No.
No, I'm sorry, we're talking about a vacant parcel within
A
a
vacant
business
parcel.
park or a manufacturing area. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And
Thank you.
the scoring criteria process only applies to retail storefront, so those other types of businesses aren't going to be subject to this process at all.
Well, they get scored, they have a minimum requirement, so they are scored and have to meet the minimum in order to pass. But it's not competitive because the number of permits isn't limited.
Okay, well, I just think we need more clarification, and then perhaps we can decide if we want to agendize it later. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Pease.
Yeah, as the instigator of this discussion, I respectfully withdraw. Because I think the criteria is probably appropriate for the retail one, which is the competitive one. And I think it doesn't matter enough to decide it on the fly right now. So that's where I'm going with it.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Christensen.
I agree. And I just wanted to respond to Councilmember Marks. You weren't here when we had these original discussions, but the idea originally, and this may still be the future of San Luis Obispo, is that we have a world-class agricultural university right there. One of these days, we might be doing world-class research on cannabis and on cannabis products and all that kind of stuff. So the idea was that we might want to encourage that type of development of a business, of a research facility that's doing processing, but also doing research on, how you get good things out of cannabis. So there was a lot more to the discussion around raw land versus redevelopment and that kind of stuff, going in that direction of utilizing our local but world-famous university in terms of where cannabis businesses might go. That's where it came from.
Thank you for a little bit of history on that.
If I could address that, I know that some of the students in the viticulture program at Cal Poly are trying to convince Cal Poly to also allow them to have the cannabis kind of, program, what you're talking about, but that's on county land. Cal Poly can do whatever it's going to do, but
Well, they're a federal, they can't do it yet because of federal feds, but maybe a Cal Poly student or somebody, a graduate. The idea is there could be some great, what do they call it, leveraging and whatever, synergy on this later on. We don't need to talk, we don't need to
we can defer this till later. Thank you.
Okay, well, since the initiator withdrew, I think that's completely appropriate. Thank you so much. It did seem like it would be more logical to want to encourage refurbishing of more rundown spaces than raw land, so I appreciate where you were going, but I'll let it be.
So just to be clear, we're going to use the criteria if we should so
With
by
corrected
chance,
addition.
with some minor administrative corrections to make sure that it's logically sound.
That is correct. Thank you for the summary. And thank you, Alex and Brian. Thank you very much. Well, we will move on to the liaison reports and communications. This has been a busy couple of weeks. Before I jump into my 12 zillion things, anyone else have any reports? Councilor Marks?
Yes, well, just really briefly, there were a lot of different events going on. The REACH program event was on October 5th, and I attended that, and it was also their annual meeting. I thought many of us were there, actually. I thought it was very productive. And then many of us attended the Tank Farm Roundabout art installation on the 7th of October. And then something really very interesting and unusual, the Norwegian consul came to San Luis Obispo to talk about the possibility of collaborating with the installation of a wind farm off the shore of Morro Bay. And I just read today that the lease has been approved by the federal government. So that's all that I have right now. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Yes, thank you for mentioning REACH and the ribbon cutting. And also, I was able to attend the College Core launch, which there's a lot, I think over 300 students that are giving back in a community service way and helping getting money towards their school. So it's really exciting for us here. Also, I'm thanking the SLO High School for inviting me to come and share about city government and get students excited and involved. There was over 160 students, and the questions they asked were the same level as the questions many of our community members asked. So that was really great to hear. The Downtown SLO Breakfast, I just wanted to thank the Downtown SLO for giving us an update, kind of the State of the Union kind of concept. And thank you very much to Michael Codron and Derek Johnson for providing a really great update. And then, similar to the Norwegian consul, Senator Laird came here and he did talk about the Norwegian consul, that's why I mentioned it. But he did talk with many of us as the mayors and city managers and share kind of next steps with Diablo and kind of the fight that he had, not the fight, but the advocacy that he had at 1 in the morning, 2 in the morning, et cetera, with the governor and the legislature, and it was a very interesting conversation. Again, we're very concerned with safety and the renewable energy and where we go from here. And then lastly, as we get the verdict of Kristen Smart today, just makes me think of the Lumina Fun Run that we went to, or that I went to on Saturday, and just as we continue to try to figure out how do we help people in our community and beyond to, when you see something, say something. Sorry, it was right after I graduated from college, and so Kristen Smart and the loss of her was a really big effect on my life and a couple of friends' lives, and soon after was Rachel Newhouse, all within a very close time period. You know, we have a lot of resources in this community. I just want to make sure that if people are listening and they're looking for resources, Lumina, 211-988, and of course, if you need it, 911. So I'm thankful for our public safety being here, and as well as our community partners with Lumina and Safer. So thank you very much, everybody. I don't see any, oh, wait, just kidding. Councilmember Shoresman.
I went to most of the same things that you all went to, the ribbon cutting, and that was a great event, as well as some of the other ones. There was one other event that I went to that was really great. Community Counseling Center hosted a congratulatory reception at the Dilla de Adobe for Ellie Axelroth, who received the Arlene Chandler Award, and she's made a lot of contributions to supporting mental health and counseling in this area, and it was great to see so many people out and about and celebrating her.
Awesome, that's wonderful, thank you. Oh, and lastly, thank you so much to the SLO Fire Department. They're gone now, but the open house was fantastic on Saturday, and we had a lot of fun. Never saw a car get cut in half before, so that was kind of neat. But, well, thank you everyone for tuning in or watching today, and our next regular city council meeting will be on November 1st at 5:30 p.m. Thanks so much.